asunder, screams in the darkness, echoes like thunder. Every word you say tears us asunder. Your voice is a weapon, fires like a gun, explodes in the silence, nowhere to run. Your voice is a weapon, fires like a gun, explodes in the silence, nowhere to run. Come along, join the fun, in a world where adventure is never done. Every corner we turn, a new friend in tow. It's time to start the magic on the Globest Show. It's time to learn and grow on the Globest Show. See the sights, so much to know. Across the lands, together we go. Hand in hand, we join the flow. Discover wonders in the Globus Show, where every day's a brand new episode. On the Globus Show, it's time to learn and grow on the Globus Show. Come along, join the fun, in a world where adventure is never done. Every corner we turn, a new friend in tow. It's time to start the magic on the Globus Show. It's time to learn and grow on the Globus Show. See the sights, so much to know. Across the lands, together we go. Hand in hand, we join the flow. Discover wonders in the Globus Show, where every day's a brand new episode. On the Globus Show, it's time to learn and grow on the Globus Show.
What up, Twitch? What up, Hydran? What up, bots? What up, lurkers? What up, tiny people in Machetterino? It's your boy. And we got Stampy here. Hydran, the alerts don't work during the intro because the audio doubles on the intro song. So I have to turn off the desktop audio. They work everywhere else. They just don't work then. And we got Snacks, and we got Stampy, and we got Alex's new video to watch. We should probably get right to it. And there he goes. Excuse me, Alex Avila. Alex Avila did a video called AI Wars, which was a really good video. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend. It's a little over 3 hours long, but it's actually like a nuanced take. We joke about nuanced takes around here, but this is a nuanced take, and it made a bunch of people angry because Alex didn't just come out and say AI bad. And so now it was 5 parts, 4 of which are contained in the first video, and then the 5th is this one called the Tech Billionaire to Fascist Pipeline. So now we're going to watch that, and then if we have enough time, I have other videos until we get to noon. So without further ado,
some artists have pursued lawsuits against. The end of the world began nearly 2 decades ago. In 2008, capitalism literally crashed out and destroyed millions of people's lives. They said it was all too big to fail, and yet it did, quite dramatically.
What up, John?
Since the fall of socialism in 1989, we were led to believe that free market capitalism, despite its tendency to export suffering and destroy social safety nets, was the best way to maximize human freedom. Now, usually, when I hear human freedom, I tend to think of the universal right to individual self-determination. But I guess I'm just a crazy guy with wacky ideas. So the market collapsed. Though financial capitalism survived, thousands of working-class people did not. The destruction of the market revealed some serious systemic flaws that neither the left nor the right could hand-wave away. So what next? Let's start with the left's response to the apocalypse. In the book Capitalist Realism, published a year after the crash, Mark Fisher articulated perhaps the fundamental problem of late capitalist culture: alienation. We're stressed, we're disconnected, we're aimless. This alienation stems from our inability to imagine an alternative to the existing socioeconomic order. Even in 2008, when the system had consumed itself in the most obvious and undeniable way.
This is the aphorism, it is easier for some people to imagine the end of the world rather than the end of capitalism.
It was, as Fisher famously quotes, easier to imagine the end of world than the end of capitalism.
Maybe just push play on the video, bro.
So we indulge instead in our unhappy consciousness. What we do when we live in a broken system and everyone knows it. Does it even matter if there seems to be no alternative? This is it. And it sucks. But what if we were to indulge in a little bit of post-capitalist speculation? What would that world look like? Well, in the face of alienation, it's easy to desire a great return. Perhaps the thing capitalism was supposed to promise, human emancipation, might be found in some prior way of life. Let's go back to running around in the forest naked. Well, hold that thought. Take Mark Fisher's analysis of the movie Avatar. In Avatar, a big evil capitalist corporation uses technology to destroy the Na'vi, a beautiful, primitive, organic society. The movie suggests, wow, if only us moderns could be more like these noble savages and follow their pre-technologized existence. But Fisher rejects this dichotomy. As he states, what is foreclosed in the opposition between a predatory technologized capitalism and a primitive organicism, evidently, is the possibility of a modern technologized anti-capitalism. It is in this pseudo-opposition that Avatar functions as an ideological symptom. The issue is, rather, how modern technological civilization can be organized in a different way. In the later years of his life, Fisher tried to construct possible alternatives to the figure of organicist humanism that...
And to Sean's point, it was actually expected that we were going to get into a recession sometime late last year, if I recall correctly, maybe early this year. And see, that's the thing, Hydron, is it is possible that some of the external symptoms of the because what Fisher just said is something I completely agree with. It's possible that some of the external symptoms of a recession are not showing in the same way, and therefore we find ourselves in a situation where, like, some of the symptoms, like people losing jobs, etc., are showing up, but the symptoms like a shrinking of the GDP, and a shrinking of the GDP is the indicator of a recession. That's literally what it means, right? As opposed to like 2%, 3% growth, it's like a negative growth for a period of, like, I don't know, 2-3 quarters, something like that. And capitalism may have found a way to avoid presenting those symptoms that normally show up. And it's also possible that GDP has been so completely disconnected from your average person's experience that it's not even a good indicator of a recession anymore. But it's still the one we're using.
Drives our desire to return. He called this project Acid Communism. Here he tried to articulate a forward-facing vision for the contemporary left, somewhere we could all go after capitalism. Unfortunately, in 2017, Fisher took his own life before he could complete the book. The project of left accelerationism seemingly died along with him. But the right's vision of the future is alive. Post-financial crash,
I mean, we're going to be talking about AI. This is the what up, Cosmic? This is the second video in the AI Wars videos, and we are talking about technology and in the left. I did say that I was going to do this today in order to get this one on the books, and like that. So it's relevant. Whether or not you want to watch it is entirely up to you, Cosmic.
One man in particular fostered a terrifying vision for the world after neoliberalism. This is Peter Thiel. Unfortunately, he hasn't killed himself. Thiel...
Jesus Christ, Alex.
Thiel is currently the techno-libertarian specter that haunts our political social landscape. He rose to prominence as a tech entrepreneur and co-founded PayPal in the late 90s, alongside a sad, balding man who fell into a wood chipper and suffered a horrifically slow and extremely painful death. Red flag number 1. Peter Thiel is a rich white guy who grew up in South Africa. I'm sure his family only did really good things for the world there. Red flag number 2. Thiel went through a libertarian phase in high school. Unfortunately, due to either being extremely
I don't necessarily think that going through a libertarian phase in high school, especially as a teenage male, is indicative of like really being a red flag. It's just, how long do you carry those thoughts with you? There's a anarchist rebellion that happens in youth, especially male youth, of I can do this all on my own, right? I know everything. It's a thing. It happens, right? Like, and it's, you have to, I mean, I guess you could call it a red flag, but it's something to watch rather than being like the actual fucking thing. But Peter Thiel is obviously the worst case scenario of that kind of behavior.
stupid and or extremely evil, he never grew out of it. Thiel claims to be an avid supporter of human freedom through free markets, but you would think that after unregulated market shenanigans brought economic meltdown in 2000.
Yeah, Kel Thickness has talked about their libertarian phase quite a lot, right? Being open about your history, I think, is important, right? And not only do you demonstrate the fact that other people can change because you changed, but also, like, to ignore your past and to try and hide it leaves you, it's basically lying. And once you start lying, then you start having to tell lies to cover the lies and etc. And it builds and snowballs, and then your whole fucking house of cards collapse. You do you, Cosmic. You do you.
2008 that Thiel would learn to read the room. Instead, he doubled down on his libertarian ideology. People turning away from free market capitalism after the financial meltdown? No, it can't be that this was a totally reasonable response to the disastrous effects of unregulated profit-seeking behavior. Actually, people are too stupid to govern themselves. In a 2009 article titled "The Education of a Libertarian," he famously stated, "I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible." Nice one, Pete.
For those of us who were libertarian in 2009, our education culminates with the knowledge that the broader education of the body politic has become a fool's errand.
Yes, surely. The problem is that people are too stupid to realize that the answer to market-induced mass suffering is more markets.
The 1920s were the last
It's not me, everybody else.
decade in American history during which one could be genuinely optimistic about politics. Since 1920, the vast increase in welfare beneficiaries
Anybody know what happened around 1920? Right? What happened in response to what was happening around 1920? Because this character will come up many times in the schools of thought that exist, in the Peter Thiel. Right. And what was the United States' response to the Great Depression? Right? FDR and the New Deal. Right? That whole process is regarded either on one hand as like, destroying the potential of capital through overregulation and big government, or on the other hand, as an example of FDR acting as a dictator, and that it was like, that is something good, right? Excuse me.
and the extension of the franchise to women, two constituencies which are notoriously tough for libertarians, have rendered the notion of capitalist democracy into an oxymoron.
Oh, those pesky women and poor people. Why can't they just understand that a system that disproportionately harms them is actually really good for them? Because I, billionaire venture capitalist Peter Thiel, said so. Well, Pete is the one with billions
up,
of dollars,
Barcade
so he
Jay?
must know a thing or two, right? but it probably maxes out at 2. Okay, fine. Libertarians are low-hanging fruit. My apologies. So why even bring up Old Pete? Because Old Pete genuinely believed in what he said. So much so that he put his money where his mouth is. He's a technological optimist with a clear vision for the future. An all-encompassing end of democracy, the worship of capital, and the cultivation of the technology that'll help us get there. He concludes his post-crash essay with a warning.
We are in a deadly race between politics and technology. The future will be much better or much worse, but the question of the future remains very open indeed. We do not know exactly how close this race is, but I suspect that it may be very close, even down to the wire. Unlike the world of politics, in the world of technology, the choices of individuals may still be paramount. The fate of our world may depend on the effort of a single person who builds or propagates the machinery of freedom that makes the world safe for capitalism.
Thiel would spend the next few decades becoming that single person. He, alongside others who share his vision, would invest billions of dollars into building the future we need.
So who do we have here? We have Elon Musk, Mark Andreessen, Peter Thiel, obviously, and this is Curtis Yarvin, and this is J.D. Vance. You recognize any of those names?
Now occupy. Both Peter Thiel and Mark Fisher believed that even at the end of the world, a technological future was still imaginable. But while the left has failed to organize around an alternative, Thiel and his billionaire buddies have put their money and their actions where their mouth is.
What up, Sieg?
The world is ending. Rejoice and be glad. Surrender to the depressive hedonia of the techno-feudal goo cinematic universe. The world you were born into no longer exists. The time has come for an indefinite end time. The end of history has come to an end. Is this what all of human history has led up to? Chat bots, spam bots, art bots, sex bots, shit bots, milk bots, bots that can do everything except the things that no one wants to do? And they may or may not be destroying the world. But the world was already coming to an end anyways, right? We're in the end times, as in literally the time of ends. The end of democracy, the end of the world, the end of human life as we know it. But how did we get here? Where are we going? And what can we do about it? Who controls the future and how can we get it back? This is a story about a battle of political consciousness, perhaps the final battle we'll ever wage. And AI is right at the center. Not because it's going to become sentient and destroy us, but because people want to use it to control other people. Is there a way to stop this? Is this truly all technology can be? How do we fight back? I'm not sure, but I sure as shit need to shave. That's why this video is sponsored by Henson Shaving.
Is this an ad?
Sometimes it all gets so tiring, doesn't it? We're supposed to just ignore that the world is going to shit, that so many of the things that were supposed to make life convenient just make it worse?
Shaving is a good example. For years, I thought shaving was just supposed to be something painful, something to be endured. I thought that razor burns and bumps were just a fact of life. I used to think that shaving was just something to get out of the way, to do in the last 30 seconds before running out of the door in a hurry. But then I tried.
Why would you shave without shaving cream? Did like as someone who does not shave,
This razor from a company called Henson Shaving.
I do when I shave, right? And like, you know, I clean up on these parts and on the neck and stuff like that. I do use a single blade razor. Not necessarily this one. I'm not advocating the Henson Shaving. We're just gonna let it's very short. We're just gonna let Alex get their ad revenue. But this kind of razor, super easy to clean, super easy to use. In the blades, the disposable blades, you get like, I don't know, like 1,000 of them for $10. Like they're incredibly cheap. I highly recommend if you shave, looking into getting yourself a single blade razor and disposable blades. Plus, if you bake bread, you can use the disposable blades and a like a chopstick or a bamboo skewer and use it to cut the slices into the top of bread. So they have multiple uses.
And now shaving just works for me. What used to be a nuisance is now a ritual. It's almost meditative. And the irritation that used to define my past shaving experience, it's gone thanks to the Henson razor. It's just one blade.
No, you don't use a used blade. You use a fresh blade. The blades come wrapped in individual little wax paper packets.
Machine's like a piece of aerospace hardware with a fixed angle that makes shaving feel intuitive and natural. You just use it, and somehow there's no irritation. They actually did a clinical study on this, measuring skin redness and heat, and the results showed that the Henson razor and shave cream actually delivered less razor burn than traditional multi-blade razors and shave foam. And in the long run, switching to a single blade razor like this saves you a ton of money as opposed to buying a bunch of shitty disposable razors that end up piling up in landfills. And if you use my link, hensonshaving.com/Avila, you can get 100 blades for free with the purchase of any razor. That's 2 years worth of shaves. Look, maybe the end is near, but that means that these little moments matter even more. It feels good to care about something. And honestly, it feels really nice to own a nice object that's a consistent part of my life.
I do have a straight razor, and I was going to try straight razor shaving, but like you have to sharpen the thing and get a strop and all sorts of other stuff, and that just seemed like way too much. But the straight razor was like $10 at a antique shop, so I had to get it.
Something as simple as a consistently healthy shave can be really meaningful. It seems like the left has lost its faith in technology, and it's not a mystery as to why.
We'll take a deep dive into Silicon Valley techno-fascism more broadly, and touch on the ways AI development consolidates power in the hands of a small group of techno-fascists, giving the technology world historical political stakes that requires more than a simple critique of it. Though the digital coup threatens our lives and our futures, it is not inevitable. Through the organization of labor and the building of alternative institutions, we can and we must reorient the function that technology plays in our world. Here we answer the question, how? We now lie at the precipice of these fundamental questions. What should the future look like? How do we build a new world? And who exactly is gonna do it? Not only has the right-wing elite offered their answer, but they are quickly ensuring that theirs will become the final answer. Right now, billions are being poured into AI startups, political campaigns, and techno-fascist political architecture, projects that all give elite tech billionaires control over the future. Does the future belong in their hands? Are we gonna let them take it from us? Both geographically and counterculturally, the Silicon Valley of the 1960s wasn't too far from the hippie movement in San Francisco. The 1960s counterculture produced a generation of entrepreneurs interested in a technological revolution through personal computing. If, for the hippies, psychedelics functioned as a tool to raise the masses' social and political consciousness, for proto-Redditor Silicon Valley tech entrepreneurs, personal computing would play a similar revolutionary role. Early experiments in DIY computing culture, like the Homebrew Computer Club, had a huge influence in the rise of personal computing. Tons of these entrepreneurs and early tech researchers were doing the same drugs that the hippies were doing. For them, personal computing would allegedly liberate the individual from the old government-funded computer bureaucracy. The 1980s brought big venture capital investments into the valley, and by the 1990s, this hippie utopia vision of computing morphed into a kind of techno-progressive libertarianism that some have called the Californian ideology. As Richard Barbrook and Andy Cameron write, the Californian ideology was, up until recently, a bizarre mix of the freewheeling spirit of the hippies and the entrepreneurial zeal of the yuppies. For much of the 20th and 21st century, Silicon Valley entrepreneurs were neither traditional big business conservatives nor big government progressives. According to a 2017 study of tech entrepreneurs, most were very socially liberal, supportive of redistributive economic policies like high taxes, but staunchly against government regulation of businesses. So tech people were totally fine with gays and taxes, as long as they get to do whatever they want with whatever remains. Given their socially liberal stance and openness to progressive tax policy, tech formed a seemingly natural alliance with the Democratic Party. There was kind of an implicit deal. Tech people promised to politically and financially back the Democratic Party, and Democrats promised to do the same. In the 80s and 90s, pro-tech Dems were colloquially labeled Atari Democrats. In 1991, then-Senator Al Gore pushed for legislation like the High Performance Computing Act, which helped jumpstart internet adoption across America. But what really
And that's when people derisively say that Al Gore invented the internet, that's what they're talking about. He did not invent the internet, but he, through that act, was fundamental in boosting the internet to the levels that we either enjoy or don't enjoy today.
solidified tech's transition from cosmopolitan DIY hobbyists to the giant mega monopolies we know today? Well, as this little thing called the internet started to gain popularity in the 90s and 2000s, wealthy investors wanted to get in on what seemed to be an emerging
What up, Textillion?
economic revolution. Tons of hype and investment were poured into online shopping startups. Some you might recognize, like Amazon and eBay, but also tons of other .coms that we've relegated to the dustbin of history. Flooz.com, Gadzooks.com, Boo.com, Beans.com? Wait,
I remember Gadzooks.
but what happens when you pour tons of speculative capital into a bunch of companies that fail to return a profit? All the investment hype in new useless internet companies culminated in the dot-com crash. In moments like these, I'm reminded of the words of Cory Doctorow. Tech bubbles come in two varieties: the ones that leave something behind, and the ones that leave nothing behind. The few companies that did survive the dot-com bubble, like Amazon or Google, suddenly occupied a larger portion of the market share.
Yeah.
With competition out, they could finally dominate. Post.com, Democrats in the 2000s still stood by tech's side. Even post-financial crisis, Barack Obama enthusiastically championed Silicon Valley as a key ally in rebuilding the American economy.
Basically, if we want to win the future, America has to outbuild and out-innovate and out-educate and out-hustle the rest of the world.
Despite tech companies consolidating all this power in the late 2000s and mid-2010s, people were still optimistic about social media as a force for innovation and democracy. What's the need for a political economic reckoning when we can post our way into the future? Now, there were reasons to be optimistic about the internet in 2011 and 2012. Social media played a central role as a tool for political organization in the Occupy Wall Street movement, in the demonstrations that broke out across the Arab world, now known as the Arab Spring.
I think it's easy to forget that we used to be optimistic about social media. Social media used to be cool and new. It used to feel like the beginning of a revolution. At any moment, an internet hacktivist would blow a new whistle, or Tumblr would invent a new gender. The internet wasn't always a narcotic vortex with the ability to destroy your perception of time, foster political instability, and deplete your ability to feel natural pleasure. So what happened? Well, unfortunately, this is where he comes in. In 2016, the United States elected Donald Trump as our 45th president. And, well, it's hard to overstate the significance. The shock. How could this happen? People searched for some kind of explanation. White working class resentment, good old-fashioned American bigotry, unexpected backlash to neoliberal globalization, probably all of those things. Though many fingers were pointed in many directions, a good chunk of them pointed to social media. According to things like
and that point right there is something that I want to drive fucking home. And I will, because I'm seeing it again right now, related to the passage of the big beautiful bill, and everyone, like, they're pointing the fingers at one particular group and saying it's all their fault, and none of that is correct. I'm not saying that they didn't have something to do with it. I'm not saying that their failure to run a good campaign in in this past election it is not a factor, right? I do not deny the factors. I'm saying that there are more factors, and there are no simple solutions to complex problems, and there isn't one thing that did the fucking thing. It is many different things lining up together that created the current fucking environment that we live in. Just wanting to pass the blame without understanding the actual root cause of the issue. True. Yeah, like someone, there's a guy that I follow on social media, who does, I like to watch self-defense videos, and they do self-defense videos, and they're like, we should not call them Republicans at all anymore, right? That denotes a particular type of political ideology, and that we should just refer to them as fascists. And I can't argue with that point of view. But yeah, just if anyone comes at you and says it's only this thing, right? This is the reason why, then they're not doing good analysis of any type of, especially political situation. There are multiple factors involved in anything, right? Some of which are way too complex to understand. Now, you can use AI to help you with that, but the point being is there's a lot of people who just want to point fingers, and so that they can throw up their hands and say there's nothing we could have done, it's all someone else's fault, right? And I'm not into rugged individualism, right? I'm not saying that like any individual on their own can change the world. I'm saying that you like we all need to get involved, and we all need to see the world as it actually exists so that we can understand how we got here, and so we can choose a different path.
Evidence and research. In 2016, political misinformation was rampant on social media throughout the election cycle, especially on sites like Facebook.
I don't want anyone to use our tools to undermine democracy.
Murmurs arose about the
Are you sure? Are you sure? Say that, sir, but are you sure?
ways the 2016 election was swayed by Russian-backed misinformation campaigns on social media. And to be clear, these were all plausible accusations. There was...
Right? Like the Russia thing, you know, like Russian collusion. I've seen people on the right and the left talk about Russia, you know, is like it's a nothing burger, you know, and etc. And no, it actually did a thing. And I've broken this down because of the nature of the way that the U.S. election systems functions with the Electoral College. It's not like the Russians had to get in and like flip a bunch of votes or do some massive fucking thing. It's the right votes in the right spot, it with targeted ads through things like Facebook to take people who are on the fence or, you know, like a little bit and just push them a little bit in that direction. And I only need like, and it was clear, right? Like on the phone call, Donald Trump's like, I need 11,000 votes in Georgia, right? It was, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about millions of votes. We're talking about thousands of votes in the right spot win you an election. The problem I genuinely see isn't how Americans think your system is fucked. It's how anybody can think Trump's biography points him possibly being a solution. I highly recommend, I talked about this over a Red stream this morning. There's a book from 1935. It's called It Can't Happen Here. Find it wherever you find your books. It is a like it was terrifying how like prescient it was. Now he was kind of referring to Adolf Hitler, but My man hit that shit on the head, and just it's propaganda works, and there are so many flavors to choose from. Yes, and it's why I want people that I have political agreements with to engage in better propaganda. I think it's important. Russian collusion looks less like hacking voting machines and more like funding Tim Pool. Bing. Very good.
Is substantial evidence that there was Russian interference in the 2016 election via coordinated social media campaigns. People were indicted over this. Mark Zuckerberg, being the good lib he was back then, willingly collaborated with the investigations into his platform.
We are actively working with the US government on its ongoing investigations into Russian interference.
Still, in response, public opinion soured against social media companies.
You're right that in 2016 we were on our back foot in terms of preventing Russia from attempting to interfere in our elections.
Democrats started to turn on big tech. In fact,
I mean, I would say, Sean, that a lot of people thought he was no real big deal up until, what was it, September 9th, 8th of 1939, right? Until he rolled into Poland, probably a lot of people thought he wasn't, he's just a minor, authoritarian, no big deal, right? At least he's bringing order, running the trains on time, that kind of horseshit. And then in the next thing you know, you got a war.
this is actually when we start to see the term big tech come into popular use, and it only got worse. Does Cambridge Analytica sound familiar?
Yep.
This company, called Cambridge Analytica, hired researchers.
Again, I recommend, because narratives help us remember things, not necessarily because every single thing in this movie is 100% true. I'm not sure how much of the movie is 100% true, but this movie, Brexit, the Uncivil War, it's again, like, holy shit, right? Because they talk about the thing I was just saying about a particular group of people in a particular space. It's exactly what this movie is fucking talking about. If you haven't seen it, you should definitely see it.
Alexander Kogan to do some psychological research through an app called This Is Your Digital Life. Users were paid to take a personality test through the app, and agreed to give this app access to their personal data. But unknown to the users, the app also collected data about the test takers' Facebook friends. Through this app, Cambridge Analytica acquired tens of millions of users' Facebook data. While it was against Facebook policy for researchers to use this data for commercial purposes, Cambridge Analytica did it anyways, because duh. They sold tons of harvested Facebook data to political campaigns, like Ted Cruz's and, yep, Donald Trump's presidential bid. When the full story broke in 2018, the public backlash was enormous, particularly against Facebook, because why was the company able to do this in the first place? Why didn't Facebook put more guardrails on our sensitive user data?
This was a major breach of trust, and I'm really sorry that this happened.
So that,
He's sorry. He's sorry. Marky's sorry. Sad face.
implicit deal between Democrats and tech, yeah, that was over. The liberal establishment had enough of big tech.
So, we got the misinformation backlash, we got the Cambridge Analytica scandal, and just as a final FU, some widely covered research comes out showing that phone make people sad. Social media was supposed to be the great liberator, the new frontier of democracy and digital utopia.
And that's why I hate the narrative that phone make people sad and social media make people sad. Don't get me wrong. They're like, the way that we go about social media has definite implications, right? Like that's not wrong. You know, I'm saying that people use it to like hand wave the reasons behind the reason. And that's important. What up, Rural?
But unfortunately, social media also enables the most malicious actors. People can just lie and be racist and make money doing it. In the liberal imagination, big tech shifted from heroes of the future to villains of today. Has anyone else noticed that this is not normal? Available now as a Christmas ornament. $22.99. The hashtag activism of the 2010s is no more. Since the first Trump administration, the divorce between Democrats and Silicon Valley has allowed flourishing alternative ideologies to fill the lib-sized hole in the heart of the tech industry. How is it that someone like Elon Musk can go from rainbow capitalist to techno-fascist? How is it that Mark Zuckerberg went from apologizing for right-wing misinformation to donating to Trump's inaugural fund? Some have called the rise of right-wing thought in Silicon Valley the Tesseract bundle, the Nerd Reich, techno-feudalism, effective accelerationism. But what links these trends together? Profit? Eugenics? Well, it's not just about short-term dollars or allegiances to specific political or racial identities, though that is a part of it. Tech CEOs and entrepreneurs want to build and control the infrastructure of the future. But how does Trump's Christian nationalist base mix with amoral elite tech villains like Musk? First, let's consider how the material interests of big
Spoiler alert, it's about utility.
tech have shifted to align with the right-wing political machine. As we discussed, tech used to have a deal with the Democrats. Tech vowed to support Dems politically and financially, and Dems vowed to let tech do its thing.
But with the Cambridge Analytica scandal, the Russian collusion scandal, and the case against social media as a vortex of misinformation, Democrats started to form.
And whether it's because of a limited remit or Mueller not following through to the fullest extent that he should have, Mueller's failure to do his job in that scenario really let us down.
An antagonistic relationship to this dominating figure they began to call Big Tech. This antagonism fully solidified in the Biden administration as his FTC and Justice Department pushed for antitrust cases against companies like Amazon, Google, Meta, Apple, and Microsoft. And there's more. Biden's admin pushed for regulations against cryptocurrency and signed executive orders on AI that some big tech players saw as hindering innovation. Now, Biden's actions here aren't unwarranted, but if we want to understand why tech CEOs ran away from Democrats, these actions
It's not my reliance, but yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, Sean. Like, it really is. It is a whole fucking thing. Yeah, no, I understand, Textillion. But it, I don't know that, Mueller was a Republican, right? Like, that I buy. Was Mueller one of these kind of Republicans, right? Like the MAGA types? He was not. And I feel like for those that a lot of people in politics, traditionalists, deep state types, right? Not in the pejorative deep state sense, but in the way that, bureaucracy continues from generation to generation and from election to election. Really get their heads caught up in that it can't happen here kind of. Yeah, exactly. Faith in the worth of maintaining the institutions, which fascists don't care about, right? And again, if the idea of American exceptionalism, and to Sean's point, a reliance on patriotism, can lead you to put on blinders, right? That's something that happens other places. It's not something that happens here.
provide a simple answer. Big tech hates regulation, and Democrats wanted more of it. Meanwhile, Republicans started flirting with big tech. They offered big tech freedom in exchange for their good graces. Play nice, and we'll let you make your money. Consider the case of Zuck getting cucked. Remember when Trump threatened Mark Zuckerberg with life in prison for taking down COVID-related misinformation on Facebook? I wonder if that has something to do with Zuckerberg's donation to Trump's inaugural fund, or his announcement that Facebook would stop fact-checking information. What a weird coincidence. Sure makes Zuck look like a little right-wing cuckboy, huh? Isn't it so awesome that the president is threatening non-government entities to do his will and then bragging about doing so?
It's no wonder other Silicon Valley CEOs fell in line. They're all the worst type of nerd. Resentful and power-hungry, but cowards at heart. But while Trump had to use force to put the lib-leaning CEOs in their place, there are other nefarious Silicon Valley forces in the American government playing an enthusiastic role in Trump's vision for the future. Remember that Project 2025 thing that Democrats warned about for the past year that Republicans said was a stupid conspiracy theory? Well, there's been tons of work to outline the different aspects of what Project 2025 seeks, but probably the most central part of the project involves a vision of governance that concentrates American state power into the executive branch. Basically, restructure the government to give Trump as much control as possible. This involves firing bureaucrats, replacing government workers with Trump sycophants, and undermining all constitutional checks on the executive. Sounds scary, huh? Yep. So, now that Trump has packed his administration with Project 2025 architects, fired thousands of government employees, and is explicitly hiring new ones based on their loyalty to Trump, it's looking like Mexico City is really nice this time of year. But there's a curious other part to how this takeover has played out. Trump's close alignment with high-status tech CEOs, like Elon Musk. Trump brought Musk on board to lead the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, a new entity tasked with removing the unelected government bureaucrats causing waste, fraud, and abuse. How? I don't know, maybe Elon Musk, the unelected bureaucrat, will tell us one day.
And although Trump and Elon seem to have a rocky relationship now, Trump has tons of billionaire pets to choose from. How did this alignment happen?
The many tech entrepreneurs orbiting the Trump administration have their own plans for the future of this country. There is currently a group of extremely powerful Silicon Valley billionaires who seek to transform American governance, a group that wants to turn the state into a startup, replace the bureaucracy with chatbots, and function as an advisory board to CEO King Trump. Does this sound like a conspiracy theory? Well, what else am I supposed to call a secret plan by a group to do something unlawful? But there's other players here. Mark Andreessen, billionaire venture capitalist, currently works as an advisor to the Trump administration's DOGE. Peter Thiel, another billionaire venture capitalist, is a longtime Trump advisor and personal mentor to Vice President J.D. Vance.
We met Peter Thiel before in this video. He co-founded PayPal alongside the man
Not sure if he's going to get to it, but David Sachs, also another South African dude, currently the crypto and AI czar. Elon Musk, noted South African. Something about rich South Africans. I wonder what it is.
We're all waiting for something to happen to. But PayPal wasn't just a one-time good idea that made the two a quick buck. PayPal was about building a specific vision of the future. As Thiel outlines in his book, PayPal had a suitably grand mission, the kind that post-bubble skeptics would later describe as grandiose. We wanted to create a new internet currency to replace the US dollar. From the beginning, Thiel has maintained a strong vision of a techno-libertarian future. Endless markets, endless innovation, endless technology. He's spent his life putting this vision into practice. As one of the most powerful men in the tech industry,
Yeah, we did a video a day. We did a day about PayPal and the PayPal mafia and the origin story for a lot of these people. I've got some videos in the Discord if you want to look at them. But yeah, the origin story of PayPal is more complex for the purposes of what we're talking about here. This is fine.
and now the Trump administration, he's closer than he's ever been. Thiel and many other original PayPal employees have gone on to become deeply influential in Silicon Valley, so much so that they were famously dubbed the PayPal Mafia. Thiel and other PayPal mafiosos have their hand nearly everywhere in the tech industry as entrepreneurs, investors, board members, you name it. Thiel himself has funded a number of projects including Facebook, OpenAI, LinkedIn, Palantir, and more. But this isn't just about making money. I mean, it is about money. Of course, it's about money, but not just about money. Thiel has billions invested in philosophical projects.
You know it has, baby. I just met you. This is crazy. Here's my number. Call me maybe. Thank you for the follow. You know what has even more value than money? Power.
Editing, defense startups, city building, authoritarian candidates. Thiel's path is emblematic of what motivates these CEOs. This isn't just about
Cognifex, I think I'm saying that right. Welcome in.
Profit. This is about building the infrastructure of a future that they control. They want to be honored in statues. They want to be the face on dollar bills, or I guess Bitcoins. Take Facebook's research in emotional manipulation from 10 years ago. It's not directly profitable. It's not exactly what the shareholders were asking for that quarter, but the power to wield subjectivity itself is an invaluable investment in human control. When we're talking about building the infrastructure of the future, we're talking about power, which means that at a fundamental level, we're talking about a political project. Tech CEOs are politicians, statecrafters, and social mechanics. But if tech billionaires seek to build a political project, what ideological position motivates their work? Some people might find the union between Trump and Silicon Valley odd. Trump's base stands for working-class conservative Christian nationalism, while Silicon Valley has historically stood for gay cosmopolitan elite technocracy. Right-wing ideology isn't inherently conservative. Instead, right-wing politics involves the maintenance or establishment of an ordered hierarchy. Conservatives want to maintain old hierarchy.
They're all looking rough. That's the thing, Sean. That mentality eats you up inside, right? That constant living in fear and the desire to control everything, and like it's just it saps your will to live.
But one can, in theory, be right-wing in the name of establishing new hierarchies: market feudalism, techno-capital, entrepreneurial class interests. Right-wing techno-fascists seek to reify the logic of the market to establish a new social order. There isn't really one ideology or plan here. Even though there is a collaboration among certain actors toward a general direction, there isn't one conspiratorial cabal. Instead, we see various right-wing ideologies floating around the Trump administration and Silicon Valley, with the through line being that many of these political projects coincidentally end up with rich people controlling everything.
Let's talk about Mark Andreessen. Yep, his head just looks like that. He's also a current advisor to
You can't, right? Like, we don't do that, right? We don't talk about people's fucking characteristics. But I'm not an absolutist, and he's a weird looking dude.
Doge and a close Trump ally. So, where did this guy come from? No way that head made it out of a birthing canal. Andreessen made his initial fortune founding Netscape, one of the world's first internet browsers. Today, he makes his money through the totally real world of venture capital, investing money into promising ventures and then doing it all over again. Though Andreessen currently advises the Trump administration, he claims that he was a lifelong Democrat until the darn Biden administration took an adversarial position toward AI development. This made Mark really sad, because he considers himself a techno-optimist. As he describes in his 2023 piece, The Techno-Optimist Manifesto, he firmly believes in the promise of unregulated technological innovation. We believe that there is no material problem, whether created by nature.
Yeah, Sean, don't buy into that. That's actually, you know who talks about that kind of thing is fucking what's his name? who was a jackass who looks like shit and was partly responsible for Trump getting into office the first time. Solid right winger, kind of a conspiracy theorist. Gray hair, rip people off for like the wall, right? Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon talks about that shit. It's a the empires lasting around 250 years is aligned with the idea the strong times make weak men create bad times create fucking strong men, that fucking thing. And also a thing called the fourth turning. Right? Strauss-Howe generational theory. These things are all tied together. Yeah, I would actually make the argument, because there's a great book called How to Hide an Empire. This book, highly recommended. It's about exactly that. Baby, I just met you. This is crazy. Here's my number. Call me maybe. Thank you for the follow. So that whole empires last on average 250 years is one of those lying with statistics type deals, because yes, it's accurate, but like some empires only last a few years, right? Like what Germany did during World War II was create an empire, and then it fell, and they got like 6 years out of it. Maybe more if you take it back all the way to like when they occupied the Sudetenland and that kind of shit. And then you have Rome, which lasted like 1,000 years, and there's you thought about Rome today. So like all of that kind of thing, it's non-predictive, it's not science, it's just an aphorism that goes along with all this kind of, pseudo-scientific bullshit.
Or by technology that cannot be solved with more technology. Wow, I foresee no problems with this mindset at all. Mark cites some interesting inspirations in his manifesto. Among what he names the patron saints of techno-optimism are figures like Filippo Tommaso Marinetti, co-author of the Fascist Manifesto. But shockingly enough, that's not what I'm here to talk about. We're here to discuss Andreessen's reference to philosophers influential to the development of an important contemporary radical political movement called accelerationism. One of these philosophers is named
fucking Curtis Yarvin. Like, I don't know how you can listen to Kurt, but it's in the same way as your Jordan Petersons, your Donald Trumps. They say a lot of fucking words in a row, and they say a lot of big words, and it makes them sound smart. But if you actually start lining up all the things and making sense out of it, it breaks down so fucking quickly.
Nick Land. Mark is a big fan. As he writes in his manifesto, combine technology with markets, and you get what Nick Land has termed the techno-capital machine, the engine of perpetual material creation, growth, and abundance. So, who is
What up,
Nick
Kiddio?
Land? What is accelerationism? Why are the Trump administration
Yeah, he just says words that make people feel a certain kind of way. But it's all like fucking empty calories. Yeah, no, absolutely, Sean.
billionaire pets citing niche accelerationist philosophers?
Accelerationism is one of those difficult to define political labels. It can be many things. It can be right or left. It can be philosophically rigorous or a buzzworded tweet. The type of relationship you have with accelerationism is often correlated with your relationship to anime and the age of consent. Broadly defined, accelerationism describes a philosophy that seeks to accelerate the conditions of the current socioeconomic order with the aim of reaching some political beyond. It's currently the plaything of Silicon Valley's underbelly. That is, until certain billionaires took a liking to it.
Accelerationism describes a loose set of ideas that draw from a heritage of French Marxist theory, specifically the work of Gilles Deleuze and Félix Guattari, Jean-François Lyotard, and Jean Baudrillard. These names may or may not mean something to you, and if they do, then hey, don't forget to take your meds today. What links theorists in this intellectual tradition is an understanding of capitalism as a type of cybernetic social logic that encodes everyday life. If we understand the material world as a series of machines with social functions, then capitalism is the contemporary force that orients these machines towards capital's purpose. Consider a mouth. According to science, it literally is just like a gooey hole thing. But how we understand
I do too, Hydron, from watching Zach App streams. I've gotten a bunch of my, philosophy understanding from watching the videos that Zach plays. And shout out Zach, if you're not following Zach.
The mouth's function depends on context. The mouth is an eating machine, a licking machine, a singing machine, a talking machine. The mouth only exists insofar as it plays some sort of role within our expectation of it. The way we understand the function of different objects depends on a larger system of meaning that brings these objects into meaningful existence. This system of meaning is the site of conflict, power, violence, and history. It is the battle over who gets to decide what is real and what is not. But what is it exactly that encodes objects with these social meanings? If we can understand the power of that process, we might be able to reorient that process in some fundamental way. We shouldn't just stop the existing process of social encoding. We should hack that power of social encoding to build the world we want to see, as Deleuze and Guattari write. Which is the revolutionary path? Is there one? To withdraw from the world market in a curious revival of the fascist economic solution? Or might it be to go in the opposite direction? To go still further, that is, in the movement of the market, of decoding and deterritorialization, not to withdraw from the process, but to go further, to accelerate the process, as Nietzsche put it. In this matter, the truth is that we haven't seen anything yet.
If you haven't noticed, these original proto-accelerationist thinkers weren't traditional Marxists. And who would be in a century like theirs, where tradition itself was the very thing under attack, where the world Marx describes hadn't existed for several decades?
While Marxist theory was a response to the rise of industrial capitalism, the post-Marxist fathers of accelerationism were responding to the rupture and failure of the uprisings during May of '68, the development of Lacanian psychoanalysis, and the rise of post-industrial technologized societies. New things were happening, and so new things needed to be theorized. Deleuze and Guattari saw capitalism as harboring the power to deterritorialize and reterritorialize. It has this unique power to decode and re-encode the fabric of social life at a scale never before seen in human history. The problem is, capitalism orients this power in ways that don't really benefit the public welfare. Like, McDonald's wasn't always in 118 countries, and in a way, the American McDonald's isn't exactly in 118 countries. McDonald's menus across the world are localized to the tastes of a specific country, fostering new innovations like the shrimp filet-o in Japan, the Hawaiian deluxe breakfast platter, or the red rice porridge from Singapore. Across the world, the market tears down old buildings to make space for McDonald's, exporting American culinary tastes, iterating on them to match local tastes, creating new tastes in the process, and changing the very ways people across the world engage with food itself in an unprecedented dance of cultural influence. The world's subjectivity becomes colonized by America's vision of food, that of the fast food product as an overgreased and oversugared commodity.
I can already hear the parts of this video that are going to get flagged on YouTube. I assume maybe not. Maybe not if Alex has got it going on in their videos. But music, little random bits of music, get flagged all the time. So many sections of when we were watching Connections had to get trimmed out because of the little snippets of music that were played. I love it here.
Wow, imagine if we used all this power to give people healthcare. And that's kind of the point. There is unprecedented power in what capitalism is able to accomplish. It's able to culturally scavenge tradition until it is a wasteland of capital, paving it over with the polished herd of the new. And curiously, it's able to get us to like it. It's able to hijack our desires so that the market and our desires become one.
So yeah, imagine if we did use all this power to actually do good stuff like give people healthcare, to
Imagine.
decode the world for something other than profit, something other than capitalist means of production. Thus, Deleuze and Guattari advocated for the acceleration of the process. Not because they were hyper-capitalists, but because they, like Marx, saw capitalism as the highest form of social development humanity had ever seen up to that point.
Not the most morally good, or the most enjoyable, or their most favoritist, but simply the most capable. All of those shipping crates, ports, automation, transportation, labor, market research, financial institutions, all for the shrimp fillet. Oh, can we just give people healthcare? Please?
Yet Marx, Deleuze, and Guattari, as much as they saw potential in capitalism's social technological innovation, they crucially believed that capitalism was something that could and should be overcome.
Alex has a nice voice for this kind of thing. And when you're doing like 1.5 or 3 hour videos, you need that, right? Like it needs to not offend the sensibilities. I'm going to let this run. I will be right back. I just have to load paper into the printer.
Call to accelerate capitalism can come from the left or the right. Mark Fisher, the leftist theorist mentioned at the beginning of this video, identified as a left accelerationist. He took influence from D&G and believed that we could accelerate and repurpose what was innovative about capitalism. Its technological advancements, its productive abundance, its restructuring of social relations, its disillusion of the traditional structures of subjectivity and desire, its ability to animate and engage masses of people, its radical decentering. All of that, if rethought and reoriented, could bring about a post-capitalist order.
While this sounds like an all-encompassing, even impossible utopian vision, so does capitalism. The free market doesn't always effectively allocate resources and liberate human beings from old institutions. Capitalism was never an inevitability and requires the force of entire institutions to keep itself from its failures.
By pushing these forces to their logical extremes, Fisher believed that we could carve out an alternative to capitalism.
But there's also right-wing versions of accelerationism, pushed by the likes of Nick Land and Silicon Valley's richest basement dwellers. Land wasn't always an explicitly right-wing figure. Land started his academic career as a cultural philosopher at the University of Warwick in the late 80s, and co-founded the university's cybernetic culture research unit with fellow philosopher Sadie Plant. The CCRU produced tons of interesting theory and work in cybernetics, cyberfeminism, cyberpunk, cyber whatever. It seemed that they had their finger on the pulse of a genuine cultural undercurrent. Land's earlier work is directly influenced by Deleuze and Guattari's left-wing philosophy, and Land used that framework to write about capitalism as a sort of self-evolving autonomous force, akin to a runaway artificial intelligence beyond human control. This is because what appears to humanity as the history of capitalism
Am I a real streamer now, like Hassan?
is an invasion from the future by an artificial intelligent space that must assemble itself entirely from its enemies' resources. Land saw potential in the ways capitalism breaks down traditional human-centered values to usher in a world beyond humanity as we know it. Through this, he fully articulated accelerationism as a philosophy of his own. As he writes, "The only way forward is through," which means further in. In this germinal accelerationist matrix, there is no distinction to be made between the destruction of capitalism and its intensification. But over the years, his vision of a post-capitalist future darkened.
I'm not sure what you mean, Sean. In poor Marxist theory, isn't capitalism inevitably like going to collapse under its own contradictions? If that's what you mean, then that's the argument. The only flaw that I see with it is that how long does that take, right? Like the buzzword is, right, late stage capitalism, right? Like right now we're in late stage capitalism. And that could be true, right? But how long can capitalism late stage for? That's the problem, right? And that's why, like, there is some utility in talking about like late stage capitalism, and there's also a lack of utility around talking about late stage capitalism because it doesn't define enough, right? You need to define your terms and your periods of time so that you can actually act and address issues. If you just say, oh, we're in late stage capitalism, great. And, you know, like when I say climate change, you know what I'm talking about, right? Like man-made climate change, planet is heating up on average, everything is getting warmer, it's creating more, weather, etc. like that. And we know what we need to do about it. We need to reduce the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. We need to reduce the amount of methane in the atmosphere. And we need to stop adding to it as well. But when you just say late stage capitalism, right, that implies that it will automatically collapse. Great. When? Right? Like, how do you plan for that? Like one of the things I talk about when I'm talking about like AI and why I want people to learn to use AI is because the nature of the world that we live in, what up, Michael? You're going to need those skills going forward because I want you to last the longest in your places of work. I want you to have influence, however small, over the way that the models develop and everything else like that. I think that those things are important in their practical use and don't require you to do something like stop going to work tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like the idea of late stage capitalism implies this idea that we're going to potentially revert back to shotguns and canned goods and do some Mad Max shit. Okay, when? Right? Like I can only stock up so many shotguns and canned goods. And then what?
As it became more anti-human, antisocial, and authoritarian.
But what changed? Well, he did.
In the late 1990s, Land experienced some personal struggles. He began experimenting with and abusing amphetamines, eventually suffering an acute mental breakdown.
Eventually, he resigned from Warwick, but continued to produce work independently. After his departure, his work took a notably right-wing turn. He began to directly advocate for the acceleration of capitalism, not towards socialism or communism, but towards an anti-egalitarian system, the promotion of unabashed eugenics, and what he calls hyper-racism. And here I was thinking ordinary racism was still in vogue.
The problem
I would actually disagree, Sean. I think we are more than capable of doing that sustainability. The problem is that we're bad at, for reasons, we're bad at resource distribution, as opposed to having like a preferably global system in which we move resources to where the resources are needed and then use those kind of things. Then like without having that, we can't do that. This is why we in the United States create an excess amount of food and then destroy it, right? Rather than moving excess amounts of food to places where people could use food. And it you know, and I understand the realistic nature of that. You can't just ship stuff necessarily from one place directly to another. But if I shift, like, let's say, I'm just going to pull a thing out of my ass. Let's say celery, right? We have an excess of celery, and the people in Iran need more celery. Just as an example, right? Then I can shift my excess celery to Spain. And then Spain can shift its excess celery to Libya. And then Libya can shift its excess celery to Iran, right? Like, it's a domino effect of how you move things around. That way everyone has fresh celery, and I'm not just sending celery from the United States over to Iran. We should be able to do this. I'm some jackass on the internet, and I can figure out a plan, you know, broadly, high level, on how we could do that kind of thing. We've looked at the fucking, if you look at the maritime shipping capacity that we have in the world, this is publicly available information, right? Like, this is just all the different ships that are around England and France, right? As you pan out, you just look at the amount of fucking shipping that we have. We can move anything, anywhere, at any point in time. And we do. The thing that gets in the way of moving stuff from one place to another is the profit motive. And that's it. So if profit motive is a bottleneck to resource distribution, then I think we should remove the bottleneck. And again, this is the Maritime Tracker, and it's interesting. You can find any ship in the world. Like, this is, oh, we find, here we go. This is a ship. This is Maersk. Maersk is a shipping company, an international shipping company. Oh, I didn't hit enter. There it is. It tells you where it's from. It tells you where it's going. It tells you all the things about it, right? It's currently underway using engine. It's going this fast. And this is something I, as some jackass on the internet, can just access.
The problem with ordinary racism is its utter incomprehension of the near future. Not only will capabilities for genomic manipulation dissolve biological identity into techno-commercial processes of yet incomprehensible radicality, but also other things.
Let's get you home, buddy. Do you think Silicon Valley billionaires are fan of the left-wing cybernetic Nickland, or the hyper-racist neo-reactionary one? We can only hope, right? But maybe it's not just the racism that just happens to benefit our milky overlords. Land's newer philosophy gives right-wing venture capitalists a direction. Land's work directly speaks to them.
Libertarians have ceased to care whether anyone is paying them attention.
Fucking Michael.
They have been looking for something else entirely. An exit. For the hardcore neo-reactionaries, democracy is not merely doomed. It is doom itself. Fleeing it approaches an ultimate imperative.
It's no coincidence that Land's calls for exit parallel Peter Thiel's post-financial crisis skepticism towards democracy. Land himself is a huge fan of Thiel and cites him in his work.
Land has provided a vision. Thiel has provided the means.
Accelerationism, once a fringe ideology lurking in dark corners of the internet, has found home among young male tech workers and venture capitalists. These tech entrepreneurs often see themselves as a select group, envisioning a future where technological advancements, particularly in artificial intelligence, redefine societal structures in a way that place them at the top. This is why AI plays a key role in the accelerationist worldview. Land's philosophy understands capitalism itself as a form of artificial intelligence, as the very essence of capital. He metaphorically describes capital as an alien entity, implying that it functions beyond human control, shaping history through its autonomous logic. This is a perspective that deeply and disturbingly resonates in Silicon Valley, where tech circles are directly inspired by Land's vision of AI. The Wealthy Boys Club.
I find that to be like an accurate description, but right, like it's a complex system, and the problem with it is that the nature of the complex system of capital requires certain behaviors, and other behaviors are punished not through any particular individual acting within the system, but how the system just reacts, right? Like in its complexity. Again, not a good thing. And it's a human created system. And I think we can do something about that. But without getting all weird like he did, I find that to be a generally accurate description of capitalism. There's a thing that other people have talked about. They've referred to capitalism as Moloch, which I reject because Moloch has been used for a variety of different fucking weird shit. Just call it capitalism, right? Just call it the system of capitalism. You have to name things. I get that. Call it what it is. Don't call it some other fucking weird ass name, which has other weird ass associations. Just, it does things to people.
Who works on AI wants to use the tech to usher in a new socio-political techno order and build towards something they call the singularity, a hypothesized future where AI becomes super intelligent and grows beyond human control and changes civilization as we know it. It's not uncommon.
I reject that definition of the singularity. There are many definitions of the singularity. Excuse me. The term singularity is directly related to the idea of the black hole, and around the black hole is the is that singularity, is that what you call it, the movie. What was that fucking movie with Lawrence Fishburne and Sam Neill? Event Horizon. Thank you. The Event Horizon. The singularity is Event Horizon. The reason why it's called the singularity is that past that point, we don't know, right? We just don't know. We can speculate on what might occur, but it's going to be such a radical change that we don't know what's going to happen, how AI, at that level is going to affect the world and us and technology and, all the things. And just like once you pass beyond the event horizon of a black hole, we don't really know. Again, we speculate, but we don't know what's on the other side of that.
To hear about EAC, or effective accelerationist rate.
And those fucking people. Effective accelerationists. Oh God, I hate them.
Where AI company employees gather to worship the neural network. These events, sometimes co-sponsored by AI startups like Xtropic, feature attendees dancing beneath banners with slogans like "Accelerate or Die" and "Come and take it." Is it just technological enthusiasm or cult-like devotion? In any case, it's all in the name of AI development and a disturbing vision of the future. Scratch a feeble tech nerd and a fascist techno-cultist bleeds. Conspiracy theories are elegant. There's
Cadillo, it has to do with the self-reinforcing loop, right? And it's something like I have gone out of my way to like absolutely avoid within this space, because you know who's suspect to it is streamers, right? You can get into this feedback loop where I am the arbiter of all knowledge. I I know all the things. You will all agree with me. Anyone who disagrees with us will be shouted down. You end up in a cult-like situation. And that's absolutely like I take feedback, right? I actively ask for people that if you take this data that I'm giving you, these different articles, these different videos, whatever articles and videos and whatnot that you interact with out in the world, and you come back to me and you say, look at this, and this, and this is my conclusion. I have done it on stream where I've gone like, oh shit, no, that actually makes more sense. And then I discard the old model. Hey, I just met you. This is crazy. Here's my number. Call me baby. Thank you for the follow. I discard the old model and replace it with the new model with updated data, because that's what you should do. But other people don't do that, and it becomes problematic, and becomes problematic very quickly. Yeah, no, I understand, Kadeo. The thing that goes with me and the way that I talk about these people and other folks is that I come from a place of radical empathy, right? I try to understand how just regular, because all people are just fucking people, and they are living their lives, and they ended up in a situation and they came to these conclusions, and my desire is to understand how, and to create a world in which, like, you know, it's okay to be wrong. Like that's a whole fucking thing. Being wrong on the internet is punished, and it shouldn't be. It should be like, okay, now you know something, and now you improve, and like that. But instead, again, that feedback loop, right? Like, so all of these fucking things are like they come from like my own self-reflection, and like, how would I want to be treated? How would I want to be thought of? All those kind of things. When leftists make video essays about the end of capitalism, the pull of their own wishful thinking becomes very strong. It can. It can, right? Like, they hand wave a lot of details. They ignore things. Not all of them, right? Not everyone, and not every video, and etc. But like, they can ignore the things that are inconvenient for their theory. And that's another problem, right? You should be able to take a bunch of information, and that's why we have the list, right? Especially for any of the new people. This is the list. In this list are a bunch of books that I have read that contribute to the theories that I talk about on this channel. And the way that I approach things is I assemble the data, and then I reach a conclusion based on that data. Now, I'm not saying I have all the data, ergo I might be missing something, and any of my theories might be flawed. Absolutely. Other people, it seems to me, right, could be wrong on this as well, construct a theory and then assemble the data that they want that supports their theory rather than that other way around. And that, to me, it's not scientific. It's going to be fundamentally flawed, because you're cherry picking data to support a particular conclusion. And when you do that, you're going to make mistakes.
Usually one group to blame. The cork board and ribbon is fun, and it all makes
up,
the
Maddie?
world seem a lot simpler than it is. But in reality, there isn't one group of shadowy figures plotting to destroy the world. Usually there are.
Sorry, Kiddio. The LUL emote and LUL as a phrase don't work in this channel. So sorry, that's why that comment got flagged. But yes, I love to talk to Ivan. I've talked to Ivan 3-4 times at this point. Ivan is one of my favorite people to talk to. You're right, Maddie, but in that sense, they are saying the things that their people want to hear, and their people are willing to ignore that which disagrees with them, right? I every so often I'll see someone post on Facebook and I'll click the comments and I'll see, because there's like 35 comments, and I click the comments and it's like, oh, you're doing one of those and you're doing one of those, and then I close the comments and I walk the fuck away, because that's enough of you.
Are competing interests, contradicting cultural movements, and maybe even good intentions. With AI development, we see tons of different people invested in its success for various reasons. For profit, optimism, power, or just genuine interest. But I think we can draw a concerning and empirical connection between influential Silicon Valley investors, anti-democratic, even fascist philosophies, and a budding political coalition in Washington, D.C. While it's one thing to show how a few powerful men like Marc Andreessen or Peter Thiel believe in horrific things, it would be another thing to show how their beliefs have been directly parroted by government officials, right? It would be another thing to show the billions being invested into politically fascist projects. It would be another thing to show how even among these different and conflicting actors, there seems to be a consistent vision of the future, one working against democracy, the public, and you. Because it's not just about fringe political beliefs finding their way into powerful institutions. We're way past that. It's about the concerning steps being taken to put this vision of the future into place. There is a concerted effort in Silicon Valley to create an alternative anti-democratic governance structure in which tech billionaires have complete control.
You know, what I'm really calling for is something like tech Zionism.
Well, that may be the worst combination of words ever uttered in the English language. As
True. That's an entire other discussion. What I would recommend, Cadillo, is because Red does a really good job. Redolent Thought. They've got on tap all the similarities, right? Like, let's say you're correct, right? Like, let's defer to your conclusion that, right, that fascism is not the word to use. Okay. So under those conditions, if something demonstrates a bunch of similar features, maybe you're correct and fascism isn't the word to use, but something adjacent to it would be, right? And we don't necessarily have a good word for that. I don't have the same, I think it's obviously fascism, but as I said, like, different people can read the same data and come to different conclusions. But I would highly recommend following Redolent Thought. You feel free to ask them, and they'll lay some shit out for you. They've got the books, they've got the shit, and they have it all on tap, ready to go.
I mentioned, Thiel and his rich friends have billions invested, not just in ventures that they hope will provide a return on investment, but that point to a specific philosophical and political vision. Gene editing, AI startups intent on building AGI, AI defense startups, and more. But how might we fully characterize this vision? It's time to turn our attention to another one of Silicon Valley freaks' favorite philosophers. His name is Curtis Yarvin. He has some influential fans.
There's this guy, Curtis Yarvin, who's written about some of these things.
And because of that, we unfortunately have to pay attention to him. Curtis Yarvin has a typical Silicon Valley backstory.
He began studying computer science in traditional academic institutions before realizing that he didn't need academia or hair conditioner to make a name for himself in tech. He dropped out of his PhD program to join a startup, until in 2002, he hit it big with his company Yerbit. Listen, I don't need to explain what Yerbit does. Yerbit has a vaguely techie name and an aesthetically non-committal logo.
That's all Peter Thiel and Marc Andreessen needed to throw $1 million at it. Even while working in tech, Yarvin continued to study philosophy and politics. Like other resentful, overeducated nerds, he gained a particular affinity for authoritarian thought. Hey, I'd be mad too if I was named Curtis. But there was also a lot to be mad about if you, like Curtis, were a liberal at the turn of the 21st century. One couldn't help.
I mean, it's possible. Oh, no, it's how, not hope. Okay. It's possible, Maddie. But again, like, people can look at the same data and come to different conclusions, right? Like, I would, and this is why, again, I don't do the ists or isms thing. I talk about policy, right? I talk about features. I talk about details. That's, and then we build up from there. So rather than say it's this ism, I will say it shares the features of these following qualities, and therefore it is something akin to that. You know what I mean?
But grow disillusioned against U.S. institutions. Abroad, you had the lies and failure.
Sieg, men will invent entire new fucking terrible ideologies and philosophies rather than go to therapy.
The so-called war on terror. Domestically, the collapse of financial capitalism. Yarvin began to see through the cracks and form his own counter-narrative. America was an empire built on lies, and democracy, the institution that kept the engine running. And hey, I'm no fan of liberal capitalist democracies myself, but only because they fail to meet the values they claim to profess. Yarvin, on the other hand, rejects these values altogether. He considers egalitarianism, democracy, and liberalism to be political dead ends. At best, wishful thinking on the part of the elites. At worst, destructive forces limiting human potential. In 2007, under the pseudonym Mencius Moldbug, Yarvin began publishing his political philosophy online, identifying himself as a neo-reactionary. His writings attempted to sway liberals toward a right-wing vision of politics. He framed his work as a plea from a former New York Times reading progressive to current New York Times reading progressives. Yarvin built a
Why I left the left.
dedicated online audience, deeply influencing the language and culture of the online right wing. The political use of the term red pill in a right-wing context, which is now a fixture in online discourse, actually comes from Yarvin, but his fan base wasn't all fringe. Behind the screen name, Yarvin was an influential player in the tech world. He maintained a close professional and, importantly, political relationship with Peter Thiel. In a 2017 email correspondence, right-wing provocateur Milo Yiannopoulos wrote to Yarvin.
Peter Thiel needs guidance on his politics for sure.
Yarvin wrote back.
Less than you might think. I watched the election at his house. He's fully enlightened. Just plays it very carefully.
So, what could it mean when Curtis Yarvin
Yasmin.
calls you fully enlightened? Well, let's discuss a bit of what Yarvin believes. As I said, Yarvin identifies as a neo-reactionary. He grounds much of his neo-reactionary worldview through his opposition to something called Whig historiography.
He's actually still around, Maddie. Like, I saw him recently on someone's stream. I think Tim Pool. Some fucking podcast. So you're happy? You're happy with the voice, Doc? I take it?
What's that? Whig historiography describes a particular perspective about
Excellent.
history that sees history as a grand narrative of progress. The old depressions and horrors of the past are to be overcome and replaced with the glories of the modern world. Liberal democracy, human rights, and technological innovation. You know, the old history bends towards the arc of justice worldview. Yarvin completely rejects this view and the liberals who espouse it. In this respect, I actually agree with Yarvin. I think there are tons of problems with teleological views of history. I don't think liberal capitalism is or should be inevitable. I think that grand narratives of progress often reinscribe the dominant social order in insidious ways. There isn't an easy answer to the questions posed by this critique. There's tons of filthy leftist critiques to the thing Curtis Yarvin dislikes, and I legitimately take them very seriously. But Yarvin isn't a filthy leftist. He takes a different approach. For him, progressivism isn't the inheritor of a history of justice, but just a way for a group of elite liberal institutions to claim power. While I agree with him that many of the liberals who claim the mantle of progressivism have a incomplete vision of history and justice, Yarvin argues that progressive governance must be replaced by a governance structure that looks more like a monarchist tech startup.
Also, last night, watched Sinners. Highly recommended if you haven't seen it. It's currently available on Max if you have access to Max or wherever you get your content from. Fantastic movie. No notes. Yeah, no, like strap in, homie. And also, it has, they marveled it up. There are some post-credit scenes. Make sure you stick around for the post-credit scenes.
The state is headed by a CEO king with complete power. He's a shameless authoritarian, an unabashed fash. Well, it's a good thing his fans are only the most powerful people in the world. So, Peter Thiel is fully enlightened, huh?
You mean Thiel, former advisor to Trump and a person directly connected to tons of Trump admin members? That's the person Yarvin's calling fully enlightened?
Yarvin's vision for the future of American governance has been pretty thoroughly outlined in his post-2008 work. But in recent years, he's advocated for a specific vision of what a second Trump administration could look like.
Yeah, Maddie, I mean, it's all systems of power, and systems of power inherently want to protect their system from things, right? But they don't want anything that protects the things that they reject, right? Like that's how systems of power work.
Essay, The Butterfly Revolution, provides a step-by-step outline of what the takeover should look like. And what a surprise, it's exactly what's happening in American government. Let's see. Trump should establish an organization led by a CEO figure who shuts down existing institutions in the name of efficiency. Trump should assemble a massive...
The difference was that Yarvin called his organization Rage. I can't remember what Rage stood for, and Elon went with Doge.
Ideologically trained ninjas to take over the federal bureaucracy.
The new regime must seize all points of power, without respect for paper protections. Anything can be nationalized, so long as the new regime has the staff, the prize crew, as it were, to nationalize it. It's a plan similar to Project 2025, but unlike Project 2025, Yarvin has been architecting this vision since 2008. I did propose the liquidation of democracy, the Constitution, and the rule of law, and the transfer of absolute power to a mysterious figure known only as the Receiver, who in the process of converting Washington into a heavily armed, ultra-profitable corporation, will abolish the press, smash the universities, sell the public schools, and transfer decivilized populations to secure relocation facilities.
Heavily armed, ultra profitable corporation. Heavily armed, a certain government organization now has a budget larger than many countries' militaries. Smash the university. See what's happening with Harvard. See what's happening with other universities. Sell the public schools. Definitely been trying to privatize public schools. Then there's the whole Department of Ed thing. Transfer decivilized populations to secure relocation facilities. Like, I don't know. Alligator Alcatraz. Alligator Auschwitz. Use your term. What up, Jane Burns? It's an extension. That was weird. That's not what I expected it to do. I wish to go to the page. I wish to go to the page. I go to the page. I click on you. Here we go. The alligator Alcatraz thing is they constructed a one could call it a camp for concentrating a bunch of people into a single location. They built it right next to the Everglades or in the Everglades down in Florida. And it's supposed to be used for deportation processing. It's guarded by like 200 Marines, but apparently not run by the federal government. It's interesting as shit.
Where they will be assigned to mandatory apprenticeships.
Aren't the schools in the Ivy Leagues private universities already? Yes, but that's not what they're talking about, right? Because even private universities can't receive government funding. This is smashing the idea of teaching alternative ways of thinking. Right? There is an idea that does not have data to support it that universities are bastions of left-wing ideology and behavior. And they want to get rid of that. They want people to only believe the thing that is necessary to maintain their system.
Great. Well, it looks like the Trump administration only seems to be targeting universities with funding cuts, arresting and deporting people without due process, attacking media with malicious litigation, profiting off of its supporters with crypto scams, so all they've done is everything that Yarvin has ever wanted. Great! Yarvin continues. The second thing to remember is that no one else endorses this plan, or even anything close. In the political world of 2008, restorationism is completely off the map. It is off the table. It is outside the room, it is outside the building, and because at present we do live in a democracy, this means it is not dangerous.
Well, congratulations, Curtis. Well fecking done. Your idea apparently has fans. It's dangerous now. Is that what you wanted?
Yarvin's ideas have yet to be endorsed by the public, but it doesn't matter. He has the right fans. Some of his fans have built a career out of re-articulating Yarvin's ideas for new Silicon Valley tastes. One such version of this is outlined in a book called The Network State: How to Start a New Country. Remember the tech Zionism guy?
You know, what I'm really calling for is something like tech Zionism.
That's Balaji Srinivasan. He's the author of the book. He's a friend of that strange-looking Trump advisor who's in love with Nick Land, Mark Andreessen. Balaji is a former partner of this asshole's venture capital firm. Balaji was also pretty close to becoming FDA commissioner in the first Trump administration, which is just fantastic. Balaji's work pulls much inspiration from Yarvin's work and cites Yarvin multiple times in his book. Like Yarvin, Balaji calls for the creation of authoritarian techno-states, but in language friendly to Silicon Valley tech bros. And they eat this shit up. Billionaires like Sam Altman, Peter Thiel, and Mark Andreessen have invested tons of money into building tech cities abroad. No one is hiding this. This is not a secret. Meet Praxis, a proposed crypto and AI-powered libertarian utopia that promises billionaires a much-anticipated exit option. Here's their not-at-all-fascist statement. Inspired by the wisdom of great civilizations, we believe that true sovereignty is achieved through alignment with the transcendent. The Praxian way of life is driven by a vital energy that seeks transcendence.
That's the lie they fed everyone, Cadillo. That's the lie. How can Musk possibly work as much as he claims to and at the same time tweet as much as he does?
Through heroic action and contemplation. Our mission is to channel this drive into a cohesive way of life, forged by social structures and institutions that guide our people toward their destiny. Only an adequately large space on this earth assures a nation of freedom of existence. Jesus Christ! That sounds like it came out of Mein Kampf. Oh, whoops, that last line actually is from Mein Kampf. How did that get in there? My bad. It's hard to tell the difference, huh? The rest of it is all them, though. It's just that bad.
While Praxis doesn't yet exist, tons of other billionaire network states are being proposed all over the world, including Prospera, Afropolitan, and Itana. I've even heard of an exciting new project happening in a small Atlantic nation called America. Hey guys, so no more jokes, all right? It's getting scary. Aren't you scared? Well, scared. It's nice to meet you. I'm Dad. As I'll say for the millionth time, these are not fringe ideologies. These are not the thought leaders of niche online microcultures, but the philosopher kings behind the literal richest people on Earth. Yarvin and Teal are buddies. Mark Andreessen.
My phone, as its lock screen, has the litany against fear on it. And it's been my lock screen, or my wallpaper, I guess, not my lock screen, for ages. Because fear is entirely natural, right? It's important to feel it when it happens, but it has limited utility when it comes to figuring shit out. Right? So, I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. Because if you panic, you're fucked. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. When the fear is gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. You know. We talked about my opinions about fucking the Butlerian Jihad and et cetera, but this thing has value, and you should absolutely practice it. That is the key, Maddie. Redefine what it means to work.
Billionaire venture capitalist and advisors, the Trump administration is a Nick Land fanboy. Tons of Trump's appointments are close friends, former employees of, or in some way directly linked to Thiel and Andreessen. Why is Peter Thiel writing cryptic poetry about Trump's second administration?
Trump's return to the White House augurs the apocalypsis of the ancien regime's secrets. The new administration's revelations need not justify vengeance. Reconstruction can go hand.
It's when they do shit like this, right? Pull your head out of your own ass. The apocalypses of the ancien regime's secrets. Get the fuck.
Hand in hand with reconciliation. But for reconciliation to take place, there must first be truth.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Very cool. And I haven't even mentioned James David.
J.D. Vance met Peter Thiel when he was a law student. Thiel, impressed by Vance, soon took the young Ohioan under his wing and hired Vance to work for his venture capital firm. Later on, Thiel spent $15 million to help
Mithril, Palantir, Anduril, Mithril. Can you imagine? Can you fucking imagine reading Tolkien and drawing just all the wrong conclusions out of the fucking thing? Because you identify yourselves as the free peoples of the West who are fighting against the darkness. Yeah, but I mean, Palantir was a goddamn tool of Sauron. I just don't get it.
JD win his Senate race. Thiel made Vance. Vance owes everything to Thiel. So let's get this straight. The president is a friend, or at least a close ally, of the guy who Curtis Yarvin called fully enlightened. The vice president owes his entire life to the man who says shit like this.
One suspects that democracy, whatever that means, is exhausted.
The vice president is a fan of Curtis Yarvin, and he's not shy about saying we need to put Yarvin's ideas into place.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a tinfoil hat take. One thing that, like, anytime anyone hits me off with the, what are they using this thing to distract us from? There's no distraction. They're literally doing the stuff, right? Is stuff happening that we don't know about? Absolutely, right? But they're just doing stuff. And it needs to be opposed. You know what I mean?
This guy Curtis Yarvin, who's written about some of these things. We have to get pretty wild, pretty far out there, and go in directions that a lot of conservatives right now are uncomfortable with.
And it's quite obvious that these ideas are making their way to Trump. As Silicon Valley billionaires are trying to establish tech city-states like Praxis, Trump proposes similar ideas of his own.
We should hold a contest to charter up to 10 new cities and award them to the best proposals for development. These freedom cities will reopen the frontier and, in fact, the American dream.
I was gonna drink the water.
Wow,
Really? That's how much water I drank.
Wow, that's really cool, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
What up, Van Briggs?
I wonder if this has anything to do with Trump's new obsession with acquiring Greenland from Denmark. I'm sure his decision to appoint Peter Thiel and Elon Musk associate Ken Howery as ambassador to Greenland has nothing to do with this. Really normal stuff, guys. Just as Yarvin writes about destroying...
Just another day in gestures broadly at everything. Has Palantir, like, actually done anything yet? I just saw the news that its market value went up and people say that's bad, but I don't actually know anything they've done. We'll check back in a hot second.
The American bureaucracy and firing federal employees.
Retire all government.
That's it. Retire all government
employees.
That's rage. Right. Well, I talked about Doge and his version was rage. That's what that is.
Trump executes his plan to illegally fire thousands of government workers. Musk and his minions at Doge are all directly inspired by Yarvin's work. They see themselves as implementing his philosophy. Sorry.
Oh, did they? I can't keep up with chat. Y'all are way too smart. So, Palantir has evolved into a major player. The company has developed powerful software platforms that enable both government agencies and private corporations to integrate, analyze, and visualize vast and complex data sets to make critical decisions. Palantir's work spans from counterterrorism and military operations to public health and manufacturing, making it a pivotal, if sometimes controversial, my favorite word, force in the data-saturated world. Software platforms such as Palantir Gotham, like Batman, you fuck, originally developed for the intelligence and defense sectors. Gotham is an AI-ready operating system designed for global decision-making. Palantir Foundry, this platform is Palantir's offering for the commercial sector, serves as a central operating system for an organization's data, breaking down data silos and enabling a holistic view of operations. Palantir Apollo. This product is a delivery and management system for Gotham and Foundry. It allows Palantir to deploy its software in any environment, from public clouds to classified networks and even on submarines, ensuring continuous operations and updates. Palantir AIP, or Artificial Intelligence Platform. AIP is designed to allow organizations to leverage large language models and other AI on top of their own private data with a focus on security and operational effectiveness. And then there's more. Palantir played a significant role in the global response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So yeah, Hydron, they're doing a lot.
His blog.
But good question. Good question.
Posts into reality. Doge advisors gush over Yarvin and claim that Yarvin offers the most crisp articulation of Doge's ultimate plans. The Doge insiders went on to say that it's an open secret that everyone in policy.
Thank you, Sieg. Sorry I missed it.
Making roles has read Yarvin. They were able to take Curtis's theory and use it to empower people on the ground to actually do stuff, even if they can't admit it publicly.
I think that what Trump should do, like if I was giving him one piece of advice, fire every single mid-level bureaucrat, every civil servant in the administrative state, replace them with our people, and when the courts, because you will get taken to court, and then when the courts stop you, stand before the country like Andrew Jackson did and say the Chief Justice has made his ruling, now let him enforce it.
And AI plays a key role in this coup as well. In January...
Does that sound familiar? This is the thing. They're not hiding anything. Nothing is hidden. Nothing is being distracted from. Everything is public. It's all out in front of you. Right? They literally dropped a book called Project 2025, and then they went and did what they wrote in the book. Not them, fucking, the Heritage Foundation. But like, there's no secrets here. That's the thing. They are literally up front telling you everything they're going to do, and it's still happening.
February of 2025, in the name of purging unelected bureaucrats, Trump had installed Musk, an unelected bureaucrat, to replace huge portions of the federal government with AI.
You're not wrong, Maddie. You're not wrong. I'm not saying that like it just magically showed up out of nowhere. Again, they've been telegraphing their moves the entire time.
Technology. One Musk associate, Thomas Shedd, was recorded as saying, "Because we need to decrease the overall size of the federal government, as you all know, there's still a ton of programs that need to exist, which is this huge opportunity for technology and automation to come into full force. It is the time to build, because, as I was saying, the demand for technical services is gonna go through the roof." Of course, he wants the demand for technical services to go through the roof.
In many ways, he's not, Sean. In a very important way, he is. And it's an important thing to understand. A lot of the way that American government has functioned for however long, right? I'm sure it goes all the way back in the fucking day, because every so often one of these conservative groups pulls out some weird ass law from 18 fuck all and says, well, this is the law we're using as, our fucking precedent for this. A lot of the way the American government functions is based on just like gentlemen's agreements, right? This is just the way that we do things. But there's no actual rule in place. There's no actual law in place. Right? Is there a link to what? Yeah, and that's which podcast? Oh, The Lever. The Lever has a great podcast about the history of going back to the Nixon days. Yeah, if you can find it, Barkeeter J, that'd be great. But yeah, like, and it was like, in his first term, Trump was like, well, I'm gonna do this. And people were like, well, that's not how we do things. And Trump was like, is there a law against it? And people were like, well, no, that's just not how we do things. And Trump was like, all right, well, I'm gonna do this. Right? And not just Trump. When I say Trump, It's not a person because, again, Dictator's Handbook. Read the goddamn book, for the love of Christ. When I say Trump, I mean the entity that is around Trump, right? The system that exists that Trump is the name of. It just Trump Inc. They just do shit. And now we've gone from, you know, like, and some of that was happening in the first, or some of this was happening in the first administration, but now it's like, well, there are laws against that. And it's like, all right, well, we're going to do it anyways because J.D. Vance, what he said, right? Just fucking do it. And then when they come at you and they, you know, the law says, no, you can't do that, then you just go ahead and say, well, stop me. Because, you know, I got all the fucking things. Then what I could maybe recommend, Hydran, is, thank you, Barkeeter J. I wish, save that for later. This is it. Yeah. Shout out Old Lobster for this. This is an app that will read PDFs to you. So you can, and it's free. So you can use it to read the book to you, if that makes it easier for you.
Because tech elites like him own the supply.
But AI can't run a federal government. Maybe there is a world where technology helps us achieve.
Is it open source? I don't think so. There might be open source ones on GitHub, but that's the one that Old Lobster recommends. So that's the one that I go with.
The dream of fully
2 hours per week free? This is why we can't have nice things.
automated luxury gay space communism. But this is not that world. This is not what Silicon Gay.
Because tech elites like him own the supply.
But AI can't run a federal government. Maybe there is a world where technology helps us achieve the dream of fully automated luxury gay space communism. But this is not that world. This is not what Silicon Valley wants. The existing logic of politics and the logic of artificial intelligence are not the same. Even if they can work together, they can't replace one another. The logic of the political lies in the moment when the people articulate a political subject. AI can't speak for anyone or anyone.
The tech property owning class wants to replace governance with AI to create a political apparatus controlled and led by tech elites. And if they can't do it within the US government, they will do it in collaboration with it, establishing sovereign territories run by crypto, automated policing and military, and billionaire rule. This isn't a secret. This was Elon Musk's plan, and even if he and Trump part ways, other tech billionaires are there to take the role. Palantir Technologies, the AI defense company founded by Peter Thiel, has long held defense contracts with the US government. Reports show that the Trump administration is partnering with Palantir to compile a mass database of every American. Palantir's technology gives the Trump administration unprecedented surveillance power, threatening an already fragile democracy.
Unprecedented.
Democracy is an imperfect system. As Yarvin writes in his work, neither progressivism nor conservatism, our two biggest constituencies in public life, has any consistent relationship to reality. But Yarvin is mistaken in thinking that the perfect political orientation is one which perfectly correlates with reality. Like all fascists, Yarvin searches for coherence, a politics that ties.
It's all weird. X1011. It's just all everything. Everything is weird. Everything is weird and unprecedented. Everything.
Social life into a neat bow. But the problem isn't that our political ideologies have no consistent relationship to reality. Our problem is that reality itself, in its essence, is inconsistent, dysfunctional, and contingent. The only system that can account for this antagonism, the only one that can contain and wrestle with the inherent dysfunction of social representation, is democracy. It is imperfect by design.
Yeah, and that's a fair point, Sean. Like, that's an important thing to consider, right? Real fascists, I think, are doing what they believe will improve their societies. I believe them wrong, but I think they're trying to improve things for the people they believe matter. And I believe most ideologies fall into that category, right? That the people who like endorse laissez-faire, hands-off capitalism aren't doing it because they are, or they perceive themselves as, you know, inhuman monsters. They're doing it because they believe it's the best system to do the most things for the most people. And, you know, they just want to win at it. So they think that, like, they truly think that you just need to get out there and work harder and you will be able to succeed under capitalism. And they are detached from the people who don't have their circumstances, which leads them to perceive those people as being like lazy, for instance.
Because we are imperfect. And Nick Land, the right accelerationist guiding the techno-accelerationists in Silicon Valley, has some interesting ideas. Underlying capitalism are powerful forces that facilitate unthinkably grand innovations. But capitalism or artificial intelligence will never become post-human on its own. Capitalism cannot become post-human when much of its function comes from preserving and institutionalizing human desire, human greed, human myth. Capitalism's face is not post-human.
These are some of the contradictions that I believe are going to contribute to artificial intelligence destroying capitalism as it exists, right? Because if they achieve their goals of these artificial general, artificial super, you know, super intelligence, all these kind of fucking things, then it's going to put those contradictions directly in line, and it's going to destroy the very system that they are trying to create. Now, is it going to create the system that I want? It is possible. It is possible not. A lot has to do with how we move.
It's Mr. Beast. It's Jeff Bezos. It's human labor. Capitalism is not just decentralized iteration, but the consolidation of power in big tech, the consolidation of our stories in Disney, the consolidation of our commerce on Amazon. I understand that bourgeois liberal democracy isn't working for most people. I share these frustrations. But the answer isn't Yarvin's CEO king cult or Land's reactionary accelerationism. Silicon Valley does not own the future. The government does not belong to Trump or Thiel or Andreessen or Musk or any individual. But they're trying their hardest to make it so. The future is being stolen from us. We have to do the work in taking it back. Philosophy, for many, is a plaything. But philosophy has consequences. Ideology is philosophy. Concepts and abstractions dictate the forms of thinkable life. The frameworks that construct our reality cease to be our objects as we become objects to them. When a critique of technology becomes a disavowal of technology, who do we inadvertently allow to scoop up that tech away from us? We can hashtag resist all you want, but the tech billionaires, unlike the left, do have a vision of the future. They're putting it into place as we speak.
Elon Musk took an axe to the federal government. Peter Thiel and Mark Andreessen pour billions into techno city-states and AI defense ventures that promise to explode anyone standing in the way.
And while not all tech billionaires are advocating for explicit fascism, they're all still planting their stake in the future. Sam Altman, OpenAI CEO, has a detailed proposal for governance involving universal basic income and forms of collective ownership in tech companies.
I still expect that there will be some change required to the social contract.
But do we trust unelected CEOs to handle the complexities of social and political life just because they have a bunch of money? Whether you like it or not, it seems that all these billionaires, from the fascists to the moderate liberal capitalists, have a vision in place and a plan to put it into action.
We can't fall into the trap of viewing our current dilemma as a battle for or against new technology. This is a battle against a class that wants to use technology to control the public. We have to get this right, or our strategies for resistance will fail. Let's go over a firm example of how broad anti-tech sentiments fail to deliver the outcomes we need. Right now, every incentive structure in the world is pushing media companies to replace working artists with AI. Whether you're an artist who cares about being able to feed yourself, or a human being who hates the commodification of art, you understand that this is a serious problem. So, how do you address the problem? Well, if media companies are replacing artists with slop, it feels intuitive to just target the slot machine, right? Following this logic, some artists have pursued lawsuits against AI companies, arguing that AI training on copyrighted work without permission is copyright infringement. Putting aside the legal arguments, let's say that AI is ruled to be infringement by the courts. Does that stop AI?
So far, AI training has not been ruled infringement by the courts. There was one very specific case between an entity that basically copied one other legal entity, but the Anthropic and the Meta lawsuits both determined that AI training was sufficiently transformative for it to be under fair use.
From replacing artists. No, a ruling like this would require that AI companies acquire expensive licenses if they want to train on copyrighted work. And I personally don't care about making OpenAI pay tons of money, but this actually doesn't stop AI training or artists' replacement. All it would do is enable big media companies to cut licensing deals with big tech companies. Do you think big media companies are going to redistribute the money from these deals back to their artists? Let's answer that with another question. Do you think big music labels redistribute the millions they earn from streaming licenses back to their artists? Do you think TV studios redistribute the money they earn from streaming back to the writers and actors? The answer to all of this is no.
This is why Alex and I disagree on some details, but Alex is right. Right? Like, Alex is right. And Alex says things that other people don't like, but they're right. You know, it's like, why are you booing? I know what makes you cheer, right? Like, Alex is telling the fucking truth. No, Alex is right. Like, not that this agrees with me. Alex is correct.
Targeting AI training with more copyright law doesn't stop generative AI from replacing artists. All it would do is consolidate the power to use generative AI in the hands of large media corporations and large tech companies. Sure, the licensing fee would hurt tech companies in the short term, but Google and OpenAI have enough money to cover these costs. You know who doesn't? Individuals who want to apply AI in non-profit-seeking instances like medicine administration.
Right? Like, this is what I was screaming about with the fucking, that California law, right? That Gavin Newsom vetoed, is the idea that regulation can be used in order to create an environment that kills open source.
Or social science. The consequences of ruling that AI training is copyright infringement could also weaken fair use protections. If these cases rule that internet scraping is problematic, that sets legal precedents that threaten good technology like the Internet Archive. Copyright expansion that broadly targets AI has empirically threatened nonprofit research in countries with excessive AI training laws. So not only does directly targeting the slot machine with copyright not solve the problem that it originally set out to solve, this strategy could negatively impact others who want to use machine learning for good. This doesn't mean we shouldn't regulate generative AI with legislation, target big tech's antitrust practices with
weak from the technology, and I cannot even hold it. And now I have the plague.
True.
Antitrust laws or organized around the issue of worker displacement. I would love nothing more than for someone to throw Sam Altman into the sun. But the broad anti-tech sentiment that tends to emerge in this conversation leads to strategies that do not work. AI itself isn't the problem in this specific situation. The problem is that we live in a for-profit system where slop is cheap and human artists are not. Some argue that copyright law is the only protection small artists have, but that's not true. Not only has copyright law been historically used by big corporations to fuck artists over, and not only will copyright expansion disproportionately benefit these large corporations, but copyright law is absolutely not the only or best method artists have at their disposal. Have you tried throwing Sam Altman into the sun? As tech journalist Cory Doctorow often says, expecting more copyright to help artists beat a concentrated industry is like expecting more lunch money to help your kid defeat the bullies who beat him up on the playground every day. No matter how much lunch money you give that kid, all you'll ever do is make the bullies richer. There is one secret third thing that neither big content nor big tech wants you to know about: labor organizing, collective bargaining, unionization, stronger labor laws. This all directly addresses the problem of labor displacement in this case. In 2023, the Writers Guild of America went on strike for 146 days in a stunning display of labor resistance. Let's take a look at the contract that the Writers Guild of America West secured with studios on the use of AI in film and TV. While writers can choose to use AI to assist with some tasks with the studio's consent, in no way can studios use AI to replace human writers. The writers used their collective power to target a specific abuse of AI technology, and they won big. In a for-profit system, AI enables bad actors at an unprecedented scale. But at a fundamental level, AI models, like other algorithms, are literally just math equations. Machine learning is a quantitative approach toward pattern recognition, but AI isn't a physical machine. It isn't a physical invention like a light bulb. It's a lens of analysis that can be applied to achieve certain outcomes. In that way, it's sort of like the invention of calculus. Calculus can be used to inform incredible innovations in public health, engineering, economic planning, environmental science, architecture, music production, and more. It can also be used to create bombs.
I don't know that laws which support people without power being literal mistakes. But it is systems of power versus other systems of power, right? Like that getting a particular law passed can help a particular person get support from those groups. Again, read the fucking Dictator's Handbook. Like it's that kind of thing. I can gain a constituency for an extended period of time by supporting a law that reflects what that constituency might want. And this is why, like, again, collective bargaining. And again, people who individually withhold their vote in a performative way don't achieve anything, right? The way to achieve something politically is to organize with other people in order to make that. Again, Trump made a phone call to Georgia. I need 11,000 votes. If there was an organization that had the capacity to generate 12,000 votes, right? Like, because they had 12,000 voters ready to go and just wanted a particular thing, then that organization has power. One person talking shit about I'm not going to vote for whoever the fuck has no power, right? No power. You need a bunch of other people to do it, and that's how organizing works.
AI isn't just math, is it? No technology is neutral. AI is a cultural object that leaves physical marks on our world. In its current manifestation, AI requires human labor, geographic space, and extracted material. So while AI is just math, it's math that's being used to abuse human life and culture. But that's not all it can be. We've created a system that incentivizes these abuses, and while we do the work in trying to overcome this system, we need practical ways to target these destructive incentive structures without foreclosing the ways AI can be used towards social good. We can enforce existing laws to target outputs that defame.
Well, don't do that, Sean. You're fine, right? Like, and this is the way things should be, right? You can express your opinion. I'm going to express my opinion. What up, Ribbons? And it may be in agreement or it may be in opposition to what you say, but it's healthy and we could talk about it. And I'm going to say why I believe the things that you say, and you can say why you believe the things that you say. And either one of us is going to convince the other one, or we're all going to just take our opinions and continue to believe them. Right? But this is the way conversation goes, right? We're not having a fucking debate like, whatever. We're having a conversation. We're exploring ideas. This is how it works.
Or impersonate others. We can unionize and engage in collective bargaining. We can strengthen labor laws that address industry-specific ways this technology will affect workers. We can pursue antitrust lawsuits to decentralize and deprivatize ownership over this technology and mandate open-source AI models. Target the incentives to target the system.
And listen, it's great that the socialists and the sociologists are formulating much-needed critiques of AI.
I mean, bring your ass, son. Like, just because I don't debate doesn't mean I don't know how. I just don't, I don't find it efficacious, motherfucker.
Technology should reflect the diversity of life and ways of living. But this should motivate sociologists to want to be in the room where AI is being developed, not critique it after the fact from the outside. This is easier said than done, of course. AI researcher Timnit Gebru had to resign from Google after she was asked to withdraw a paper critical of AI development. In response, she founded the Distributed Artificial Intelligence Research Institute to provide a counter-institution to big tech, as they state.
We believe that artificial intelligence can be a productive, inclusive technology that benefits our communities rather than work against them. However, we also believe that AI is not always the solution and should not be treated as an inevitability. Our goal is to be proactive about this technology and identify ways to use it to people's benefit where possible. Caution against potential harms and block it when it creates more harm than good.
These alternative research institutions are necessary. Socialists and sociologists shouldn't just be the ones critiquing AI technology. I want them building it. Marx did not say destroy the means of production. He said to seize them. Marx didn't say to boycott the relations of production, but to transform them. We can't disavow the future. We have to create it. The critique of AI, technology, and Silicon Valley is necessary, but it has to be accompanied by a political program for the future.
There's two visions of the future in front of us right now. If Silicon Valley
broadly speaking, two visions, right? We don't deal in binaries. We don't deal in either or. We don't deal in black and white, good, bad, good, evil, any of that horseshit. Broadly speaking, there's two visions, right? The reality tends to be far more nuanced.
Fascists get their way, we could be facing a world of mass structural violence, digital surveillance, authoritarian rule, and a complete depletion of our social safety nets. Imagined human workers turn into babysitters for chatbots, cleaning up the inevitable mess that arises from their lack of judgment. We go home and cry to our AI partners, scroll through Slopbook with Truth Social TV on as mandatory background noise, as we gork it until we fall asleep, forever. But there are other visions of the future. The DARE Institute hosts a blog series of speculative writing where they explore what the world can look like when we design and deploy technology that centers the needs of our communities. Researcher Adrienne Williams wrote a piece on education that helps illustrate the type of future that we should try to build. I envision a future where education technology is focused on retaining educators by providing them with the gift of time so that they can spend more of it with their students. As a teacher, I'd like to have tools that automate time-consuming activities like scheduling and certain types of grading tasks, and tools that help adjust lesson plans based on students' level of understanding of covered concepts. This would allow teachers to focus on the care work of their profession that is often overlooked but is the essence of what defines a great teacher. I think there's a huge difference between something like this and the tech grifters who think that they can replace entire professions like teaching or nursing with AI. But generative AI and machine learning don't have to replace humans. We can utilize AI's specific strengths for specific tasks, for specific purposes in ways that enable critical thinking rather than replace it. Sal Khan has been running the online learning platform Khan Academy for almost 2 decades. Khan Academy started with helpful math tutorials on YouTube, but has since exploded into one of the leading edtech companies in the space. You might know him as the voice who saved your ass before exams many a time.
Welcome to Level 2 Linear Equations.
Globally, millions of people have learned from Khan's free educational videos and interactive courses. Khan has also spent the past few years exploring the potential of generative AI in education by developing Khan Academy's own generative AI tool, Ganmigo. But Khan doesn't want to replace teachers or give kids easy shortcuts. He wants to help kids and teachers with personalized educational tools that they otherwise wouldn't have access to.
So it gives me a lot of insight as a teacher in terms of who I need to spend that one-on-one time with.
I mean, yeah, in an ideal world, everyone has a human tutor, class sizes are small, and education is well funded. But Khan Academy is using technology to do something about educational access right now. That's why
And that's the key, right? Yes. Do we want something different? Yes, agreed. We can work towards getting something different. What are we doing today? What are we doing tomorrow? What are we creating in the space today and tomorrow and next week, etc.? Right? The idea that we can't do thing until some other thing occurs, great. Right? Like, one of the arguments that's put forth is we can't have AI until we deal with capitalism. Okay? They're going to build the AI. That's happening. And so what do we do in the meantime? Just stick our finger up our nose and hope for the best? Like...
Ganmigo is 100% free.
A wealthy family can afford a tutor for their child. If every kid could have a private tutor, that would level the playing field.
Yeah, that's the dream.
Stephanie Garris, a math teacher at a school where Ganmigo is being implemented, reportedly said that Ganmigo forces students to think, which they're not always happy about when they're looking for quick answers. It also makes learning relatable by asking students about themselves. If a student likes sports, the AI will frame math questions using sports examples. It doesn't provide easy answers. Instead, it probes where students are having difficulty and guides them to find the solutions themselves. Ganmigo isn't perfect. For a while, it couldn't do basic arithmetic. I mean, I get it. 7 times 7 being 49, what the fuck is that about? But if your AI math tutor can't do math, then that's kind of a problem. Eventually...
I mean, for real, though. I felt that. I really did.
So, Khan Academy worked out the kinks and now direct math problems to the site's calculator. But the thing is, Khan doesn't envision Ganmigo as a giant machine that does everything and knows everything.
So like it wants to help you understand like what it's telling you and not just like give you the information.
He envisions it as a tool that helps students arrive at answers organically and critically. Working directly with teachers and students, Ganmigo is currently being piloted in a few different schools, with some already reporting improvements in student learning outcomes. Other studies also show that AI tutoring tools lead to measurable improvements.
But when you look at it, Hydran, right? It just feels wrong. Like, why is there a 4 and a 9 in there? Like, it just does, it feels wrong. It's not wrong, right? Like when you look at anything rationally, but there's some things like, you know, some math problems, like 12 times 12 is 144. That just seems right. You got 2s, you got 4s, you got 1s, you got 1s. It all seems right, right? But 7 times 7 being 49 is just not that. You know what I mean? 11 times 11 is natural. Shit was made in the lab in the U.S.
Maybe Conmigo won't end up working. Maybe it does. This is all new stuff. But that also means, even beyond education, that the future is still being written. We can say no to the future being built by Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, and other techno-fascists. But what happens after we say no? We need counter-institutions that provide a forward-facing vision of collective power against big tech. Organizations like DARE, AI Now, and Knowing Machines. Generative AI sometimes tells people to put glue on pizza. It can help facilitate a government coup, but it doesn't have to. We began this meditation on the future of technology.
There is some truth to that, Sean. And doesn't that research just show if people have something else to do the work, they're pretty happy to not do the work themselves, because if you work when you have someone else to do the work, it's wasted effort. That, like, the homie Tinker over at High Potential put that out there as well when they were having a conversation with Homozygote about AI. Like, if I have a calculator, should I be doing math by hand, right? Isn't that a waste of time for me to write out all my equations when I can just type them into the calculator and have the calculator do the math? And it's a balancing act, right? I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all kind of scenario. If you end up relying on a tool too much, you can lose, like, and I made this argument myself, like, how many of you know how to start a fire from just shit in your backyard? How many of you know how to kill and dress an animal in order to eat it and for survival? These are skills that used to be imperative, and now we just don't do, right? What up, Old Lobster? Apparently, Old Lobster, by the way, 11 Labs Reader is now 2 hours per week or something for the free thing. It's no longer free all the time, all day. Anyways, you know, I understand, Van Briggs. Like, some of you, like, probability indicates some of you have some fieldcraft type skills, but most of you are not going to have those skills because their everyday utility has been eroded by the technology that we have created. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? The fact that you have a fridge means you don't have to go get food every single day, which used to be the case, right? And that's something like, there are some skills that we can kind of let go, and there are other skills that we should maintain. And I don't know, is it like something we do on a case-by-case basis? I don't claim to have all the answers, because that way lies madness. But, you know, I think that people automatically assuming that any particular skill is something we absolutely have to maintain haven't done any real serious thinking about it. Oh, I'm with you, Van Briggs. I got a couple books, you know, like, just in case. If everything goes to shit, the books go in the backpack when I go out the door, and, you know, I can use them to, like, build stuff, and I have them written down, right? Like, I'm not relying on, you know, any technology other than the book, right? Because if we go back to before books, then it's a crapshoot out here.
Technology with the work of Mark Fisher. He spent much of his intellectual life urging the left to imagine a different future. He identified as a left accelerationist, not in the edgy, destructive end of the world way, but because he genuinely believed that either the left builds a better future or...
It's a good choice, Van Briggs. A lot of people, like, I'm a I'm a bolt cutter guy, right? Whenever I watch a movie in the zombie apocalypse and they're fucking banging away on locks and shit, I'm like, dude, where's your fucking bolt cutters? Right? I got 2 different kinds of bolt cutters ready to go. Those go in the fucking bag because that's the kind of shit, you know, you're going to want. Nice and quiet, right? Right in the library. You know, there's books in there. There's stuff. You throw it in the bag. Not as nice as an app on your phone, but you can convert ebooks to audiobooks on your PC with this. Hydrant, if you're still here, Old Lobster just pointed to something that appears to be open source.
We die. Silicon Valley has claimed accelerationism as its own. Accelerationism has been captured by the techno-capitalists, the darkly enlightened, the alt-right knights.
Why do I have a shovel in my car? Because if you need a fucking shovel.
But we forget that accelerationism was originally a left-wing anti-capitalist project. Deleuze and Guattari, its true prophets, sought a world beyond capitalism. As Foucault writes in the preface to their work, Anti-Oedipus, Deleuze and Guattari were writing against one key force.
The major enemy, the strategic adversary, is fascism. And not only historical fascism, the fascism of Hitler and Mussolini, which was able to mobilize and use the desire of the masses so effectively, but also the fascism in us all, in our heads and in our everyday behavior, the fascism that causes us to love power, to desire the very thing that dominates and exploits us.
The answer to Silicon Valley's neo-reactionary anti-humanism isn't reactionary humanism. We have to move beyond the conceptual grounds of the current system, and perhaps AI provides this opportunity. Not because I believe in the Silicon Valley hype men, not because I think technology will save us or destroy us.
Never get on the wrong side of a person who owns a pig farm.
But because it forces us to confront the humanism at the heart of capitalism and provides an opportunity to build toward a radical other. As Mark Fisher writes in the introduction to his work, Flatline Constructs, the radical question we have to confront isn't, what if the machines were alive, as the Silicon Valley bros who proclaim artificial superintelligence might want us to ask, but rather, what if we are as dead as the machines? Capitalism's
I'll do you one better, Van Briggs. A lot of the master locks, the one with the gold bottom and in the metal loop, if you take a couple of fucking crescent wrenches, right, with the box wrench on the other end, and you stick them in there and you lever those 2 things together, you'll bust right out the side of that sumbitch. Right? Like, there's a lot of solutions that don't involve fucking smashing and making a fuck ton of noise.
Power lies in the realm of human making, of telling us how and what to be, of masking its nature under the guise of human nature, of hiding its dysfunction as human dysfunction. In a capitalist society, what is traditionally considered human becomes non-human at an unprecedented scale. Our subjectivity, our creativity, our desire, our intellectual labor must be translated into exchange value. Technologies of the body and self are commodified with a price tag. There is no societal direction but the one imposed by the market. In our alienation, we can only chase the pleasure of our self-making, or otherwise risk the terror of confronting the artificiality of our own selfhood. This parallels a concept Mark Fisher called Gothic materialism. It isn't subjects or selves who produce social and political processes, but social and political processes which produce the subjects and self.
What up, Andy? There you go. There's another. I'm sure there might be some videos on YouTube showing exactly that kind of thing. And, you know. And these are skills, right? You should watch the videos, and you should get yourself a little cheap notebook, and, you know, especially something, right, in this neighborhood, you know, something about this big. take a few notes, throw it in the bag, be ready to go.
Selfhoods. This is the Gothic of Gothic materialism, when we're confronted with the horror at the fact of our own construction. It's in this moment of seeing where I think emancipation beyond humanism, beyond capitalism might lie.
Somebody once sent me some of these, which I really appreciated. And in the bag.
Philosopher Michel Foucault spent his career confronting the ways humans and subjects have been constructed throughout history. But in his later years, he sought to reclaim the task of self-making in a radical form. In confronting the technologies of human making, what is the new that must be produced?
What must be produced
Morning,
is not
Princess
man
Kimberly.
identical to himself. Exactly.
They are, they're shims for undoing master locks, that kind of thing.
As nature would have designed him, or according to his essence. On the contrary, we must produce something that doesn't yet exist, and about which we cannot know how and what it will be.
Technology and AI could just as easily bring us closer to fascism as it is right now. But in order to stop it, we have to know in which direction to go. In Fisher's most famous work, Capitalist Realism, he argues that neoliberal capitalism requires a cultural landscape that relegates any vision beyond capitalism to the unthinkable. We can no longer imagine a future beyond the current system. Our art and culture only exist in pastiche. Old forms are recycled as we forget how to create the new. It is all that can and ever will be. This lack of future, authentically new culture, or historical direction leads to a spontaneous and aimless society of decentralized corporate bureaucracy. We can't help but succumb to alienation, to chase random pleasures and entertainment, to try to forget that in free market capitalism, there is no center, no meaning, no future. On an episode of the podcast Dystopia Now, featuring probably the most prominent journalist documenting the fascist takeover of our government, Gil Duran describes the antisocial phenomenon of tech bros in Silicon Valley wanting to exit society and form their own alternative techno states. The host asks him a question.
You were talking about, how these projects started as an escape in some way. There is something kind of fun and beautiful about where maybe things are important other than the ones that our society sort of automatically values.
And it's a good point. There is something genuinely radical about forming alternative institutions outside of capitalism and building large left-wing countercultures. Tons of marginalized communities throughout history have built powerful counter-institutions and subversive social structures that were genuinely radical. Queer communities, for example, commonly coalesce around found families, groups of people that form strong collective ties after being outcast by the mainstream. It's a necessary and powerful practice. Yet Duran, who I respect deeply, dismisses the potentially subversive idea entirely.
Yeah, definitely. The ideas have been tried before, forming your own society, getting outside of everyone else. It's called cults generally. Now, it's fun to have a little escape from reality, take a retreat, go with your friends. But when you try to have a small group of people and move outside of it and follow different rules, that generally doesn't end well.
Don't get me wrong. Duran does fantastic work critiquing big tech's pursuit of power, and it's important to show how tech entrepreneurs building crypto city-states run by CEOs is absolutely an authoritarian venture. But that doesn't mean that we reject the idea of alternative social structures entirely. This is the problem that Mark Fisher described. Capitalist realism, the inability to imagine anything other than capitalism. It's not our fault that capitalism has destroyed our collective imagination, but it is absolutely our responsibility to repair it. Neoliberalism declares itself the end of history.
Why, one of the things that I absolutely advocate for on this channel is rather than telling me why something can't happen, tell me what you would do in order to make it happen. Use your fucking imagination. Right? You want to tell me why something can't happen? I've already done it, right? You've seen me. What up, Noah? You've seen me do that on this channel, where I'll come up with an idea and actively, in the middle of bringing up the idea and talking about the idea, I will already have come up with the reason that it wouldn't work the way that I wanted it to under that scenario, right? I can do that myself. It's easy to figure out how things are going to break. It's hard to figure out how things are going to work. So tell me how you would make it work. Tell me the thing that you don't think could happen. What would be the steps you would need to do in order to make it happen?
End of ideology, the end of politics, the end of the future itself. But if neoliberalism is finally succumbing to its slow and painful death through techno-authoritarianism, if fascist forces are destroying American liberalism from within, it means that the end of history has come to an end. If history is back...
Also, speaking of philosophy, I did that earlier. You should be following the homie. Because that's one of the places that I go.
Then that means that the political subject, the people, that which neoliberalism attempted to erase, has returned. The center of the collective social will might be back. As a famous Marxist philosopher once wrote, "History is the history of the unceasing overthrow of the objective forms that shape the life of man." This is not the time for nostalgia, for a call to return to art before AI, government before Trump, labor before technology, bias before algorithms. Are we going to go back to when corporate media exploited and underpaid artists? When our liberal governments enabled genocide and empire? When labor was exploited by capital? When humans, rather than algorithms, enforced bias? We can't just react or resist. We have to create an authentic future. History is here. It's time to make it.
If you enjoyed this video, you can support the work on this channel at patreon.com/aretheygay.
Shout out, Alex. Absolutely top notch. Why am I not subscribed to Alex? I'm a dumbass. There's the video. I also recommend, if you came in after the start, or like, you should watch it. But also they have the prequel to this, right? Like, this is the second part of a two-part video. The first one was AI Wars, how corporations hijacked anti-AI backlash. And it's another absolutely great video that you should watch. What do we got? 6 minutes? Dougie Fresh? Here's a piece of news. Get this one in.
Internet giant Cloudflare has declared war on AI. Overnight, it announced that it would allow...
What up, Becca? I'm of the age I didn't think AI concerned me. You have totally changed my mind on that. That's exactly what happened to me, right? Like, I thought I was good. I thought I was gonna, be able to make some art and not make a whole bunch of money, but make some money and have a little Twitch stream and all those little different things, and make some money. And then Midjourney slapped me in the fucking face. And I was like, if I didn't know about this, who else doesn't know about this? And hence, here we are.
Website owners to block AI companies from fleecing their content. Now, what that means is that today AI companies such as OpenAI, the makers of ChatGPT, have trained their models on crawling the World Wide Web for information. That means anything that's available on a website has been up for grabs. While Cloudflare has said enough is enough, and they're giving power back to web publishers by allowing them to opt in to
Yeah, Sean, but what happens is actually like at 11:59, the number starts to go down as people go and jump into what you call it? Like they want to be the the morning crew kind of thing, and like that. And then once James actually, he's playing the music and everything else, it's like it just, my number goes down precipitously, and what I'm trying to do is avoid that to try and keep my place in the Twitch algorithm.
AI crawling rather than opting out. Condé Nast, the publishers of Vogue and The New Yorker, have welcomed the move, as has online forums for website creators like Pinterest and Reddit. It's been described as a win for web publishers because if they cannot strike fair and reasonable terms with the likes of OpenAI and other AI models, then they can just put up the gates and say, nope, you can't have our content.
You might be seeing people...
No, you're 12 minutes long, and I'm saving you for Monday. Yeah. Where we got 11:57. I don't have anything else short. That's gonna be a good one. Fucking Damien talking about how the Butlerian Jihad is not a warning against AI. I'm looking forward to that. I'm not going to watch it. You can go ahead and watch it. I'm not going to watch it until fucking Monday. Yeah, I know, Sean, but it's like, it's a thing, right? Like when I check my stats and whatnot, it says that some people found you due to discovery on the thing. So like it does exist. I can pretend it doesn't exist, or I can see how I can work it to my advantage. And that's what I try to do, right? Like, if you've been, we got some follows today, which is nice. I love people following. Obviously we do the thing where there's no commercials after the pre-roll, because I want you to engage with the content. If you have been watching, hit that follow button, right? My schedule is going to be a little wonky until I get this job situation worked out, and then we'll be there, and then it will stabilize again. You want to support the channel, right? $5.99 free with a Twitch Prime. Gifted a sub, beautiful community members. If you're watching this on YouTube and you made it all the way to the end, I really appreciate you, and hit that follow button on YouTube, right? Like I'm doing all the things to the extent that I feel that I can do them. I don't highly edit my videos. I just upload them to YouTube, like right after stream. I hit the export button and that's it. If you're watching on YouTube and you want to get the live experience, which is significantly better, Globus_the_elder, twitch.tv, etc., etc. Why do we... Oh, Jane is streaming. Crucify ourselves every day. And that's the other thing, is like the reason that I raid out to James at 12 is so that people can, yeah, no, I know, Sean. So that people feel that they can come here and they won't miss anything from James's community. Because it's about 56%, according to the stats. 56% of people are shared community members between myself and James. So if you know that you can come hang out here, learn a little about AI, you're surrounded by a bunch of people that you already know, then I will raid you into James and you won't miss anything. Except James still isn't up yet. It's 12:01. James, I'm never late from the internet. Where you at? Anybody check the Discord? Is something going on, or is he just having to start up like a lawnmower? You'll be back like before. I will fight the fight and win the war. CMS coming through. 4 months. I appreciate you, homie. Yeah, no, I just got there as soon as I say, what up, Monochromatic? Thanks, Doc. All right. I'll be back on Monday. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your weekend, such as it is, and all that. Hydrate, right? It's hot out in most of your places. In the meantime, drink your water, eat some food, take your meds if you forgot, and always remember that Shaggy loves you. So do I. Be great.